All right, let's bring on Rockfin. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. All right. Happy Tuesday, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Sabby Sabs podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you're new, I want to let you know that Sabby Sabs podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Thursdays for the Sabby and JB show, and you can catch me here on Tuesday, Thursday, and Sundays. Shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Rockfin, Twitter, and Rumble, and welcome back, guys. We are kicking off tonight's show with a panel, and then we will get into other news stories. So I do want to show you really quickly what we are discussing tonight. Don't forget to answer that poll question. We will go over that after the show. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we are discussing, this is a big one. Dave Chappelle calls out DJ Khaled for being so silent. And we're going to explain to you why DJ Khaled is so silent. We'll get into all of that. We're also going to discuss, if you haven't heard by now, the big, beautiful bill Uproar. There's Donald Trump, there's Elon Musk. I'm going to explain to you how this bill could affect you, especially if you live in a rural area and if you are on Medicaid. We're going to go through all of that. We're also discussing Bob Vylan, ban. What did Bob do? We'll get into the controversial statement that he made at the Glastonbury Festival and what that means now. So we're going to get into all of that. We're also going to discuss the Idaho shooter situation that happened. Weird story there. And of course, we're going to kick things off with the Zohran Mandami panel. So I want to go ahead and bring everyone in, ladies and gentlemen. So here we go. Hello. Greetings all. Greetings. All right. So let's let everyone go around and introduce themselves. We'll just go in order. Let's start with Edwin.
Hey everyone, my name is Edwin De Jesus. I'm a former Green candidate from Astoria, Queens, who ran for city council in 2021. I've also worked on the Cornell West campaign, introduced to them by Jill Stein, and I was also the lead organizer for the New York City March for Medicare for All.
Awesome. Terrell.
Hello, everyone. My name is Terrell Anderson. I'm in the South in Alabama. I former congressional candidate 2020, was it 2020, I think, or 2022, and former city council candidate, worked on campaigns as well, and former Democratic voter.
All right, let's bring in, you guys know, my comrade Nick. What's up?
What's poppin', my friends, my family? It's great to be off the Sabby channel for once. Great to be here.
All right, and Blakely.
Hi, I'm Blakely. I don't know. I'm a troll. I'm a I'm a commentator. I'm a songwriter. I'm a lot of things. I'm just happy to be here.
All right, and Zeneb.
Hey guys, it's good to see everyone. And I guess that I had a background doing campaigns and races. I've worked on more than 100 federal races, and all of them, no corporate money, non-establishment. Some of them turned out to be establishment. We've shared that story on here. And I am now a contributor to Status Quo News and do journalism and cover outside politics and hopefully what might be a revolution. We'll see.
All right. Well, we are discussing Zohran Mandami because he has been in the news quite a bit, especially since he won the Democratic primary in New York City. And we're going to talk about the pros and the cons. And as you can see, everyone here is politically engaged. Some of them have worked on campaigns. Some of them have canvassed for politicians. So I think this needs to be said. We're going to get started with this clip here. We got to give a shout out to Case Study QB for doing the damn thing. This comment here, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into it.
You are a self-described democratic socialist. Do you think that billionaires have a right to exist?
I don't think that we should have billionaires because, frankly, it is so much money in a moment of such inequality. And ultimately, what we need more of is equality across our city and across our state and across our country. And I look forward to work with everyone, including billionaires, to make a city that is fairer for all of them.
You were recently asked.
Okay. I want to talk about the billionaire statement, and we'll just, go randomly here. It was really interesting to me that the billionaire statement is controversial because we heard Bernie say this since 2016. So I thought it was kind of surprising that they're trying to use this as a gotcha moment, and it's not really nailing the way that they thought it would. Why do you think so much focus on this? Let's go ahead and start with Zeneb.
I've been covering the meltdown for days now. It's really funny because we always talk about, and I know Sabby, you and I have talked about this before, how the mainstream media or the corporate media is so out of touch because they're a bunch of rich people and a bunch of billionaires. It's not a controversial statement to say billionaires shouldn't exist. I think that polling shows, and when you go out and you canvass and you talk to people, most people agree with that, right? But the news media will present it as, does it have a right to exist? Similar to the response that people have when they ask the question, does Israel have a right to exist? Do these institutions that oppress people have a right to exist? And the answer should obviously be no. But I do think it is telling the meltdowns we've seen on the news regarding Mandami saying things that are just duh, obvious to the rest of us in the world.
Terrell?
Yeah, I think it's ridiculous because, like you said, Bernie has been saying this. But what I also find fascinating is there are a couple of billionaires who have also said this same thing. Like Bill Gates has said this before. The Mark Zuckerberg has also said that billionaires. Mark Zuckerberg basically said that the amount of money that people can make in America amongst the billions is ridiculous. And the CEO of Salesforce also said this. Who's all three of these people are billionaires. They have also made this comment that they don't believe that people should be able to make that much money. But the problem about those billionaires, as long as America allows them to make that much money off the backs of the working class, they're going to do it, even though they believe it shouldn't be that way.
Interesting point there. Nick.
Yeah, I think it's always hilarious when they get upset whenever we go after the billionaire class, even though there's been nonstop class war by the billionaire class against the working class, and that's how we should frame it. Because look at the amount of wealth that Elon Musk, for example, the Walton family, and the billionaire class made through the last 4 years, despite the fact that wages haven't gone up, despite the fact that Americans are still struggling. We have a ruling class that engage in disaster capitalism, where they purposely tank the markets every 5 to 8 years. These markets tank, and then they rig the game where they come out on top. Like, was there any surprise that Donald Trump rigged the market on purpose with his dumb tariff plan? And then his insider friends knew exactly how to game the market, and they made a ton of money as well after the quote unquote stock market collapsed because of the tariffs. It's a rigged game. I think we should call it out. But where I'm at right now, I want to be very particular on what we mean when we talk about does billionaire deserve to exist, and this is going down to deep central philosophy where Democratic socialists will say, "Oh, we should just tax the rich." I don't believe they should like own hospitals. You know, like there's another level. Like, why are they billionaires? They billionaires in the first place because they control central resources for our society, which put them make them way more powerful than any government official, any typical oligarch. When you control water, there are people that make fortunes selling water in this country. So that's a question that we should ask, and that's kind of how far to the left I'm at. I'm not even saying we shouldn't have billionaires. I'm saying that these people shouldn't own the means of production, which is the question that socialists ask, right?
Good point there, Nick. Blakely.
I think that I watched the whole interview. I don't know if anybody else here is a New Yorker, but I paid particular attention to this race. As a New Yorker, I'm watching this interview, and I'm thinking two things. Number one, mainstream media is garbage. They're total trash. I think everybody agrees on that. But also how far the Democratic Party has moved to the right in just such a short period of time. Because a couple people mentioned, which is true, that Bernie Sanders had said billionaires shouldn't exist. But we have swung. They have moved us so far to the right that is even considered a controversial statement. Billionaires, first of all, the question is ridiculous. Do you have a right to exist? I'm sorry. Things and institutions don't have a right to exist, okay? Second of all, the idea that, and I've got, a couple, I think that generally Zohran has been good about knowing how to answer questions and navigate interviews, but I didn't really like his answer. Not like I'm trying to be nitpicky, but I didn't like his answer because I felt like he focused on the inequality instead of the fact that to be a billionaire by necessity means that you are not only exploiting the laws that the water carriers have put in place so that you can exist, but also it is so destabilizing to the rest of the country and democracy. It's not just a matter of income inequality and fairness. It's a matter of these people are kings, they're lords, and by giving them all that money, they are exercising way too much power over our society. So it's not even just a matter of like money itself, it's a matter of like being able to exercise that kind of kingship over the proletariat, over the regular people. And I feel like it needs to be framed that way because when you talk to the average Joe Schmo, a lot of them will be like, well, what's wrong with being a billionaire? I'd love to be a billionaire one day. A lot of regular people will say that. So it needs to be laid out in a very clear and concise way. The actual danger that billionaires pose to democracy, and then also the fact that they didn't earn shit. They didn't earn any of this. There's been a class war, as Nick said, for 60 years in this country on the working class, and they just passed a bill to accelerate that shit. This is not class war. This is a response to class war. And I wish I'd see people being way more aggressive about it.
And Edwin.
Yeah, just to add to your point about regular people having a desire to be a billionaire, I think that's what drew a lot of people to Trump's appeal was the fact that, well, if I elect this billionaire, maybe I can share in some of these riches. And, back to Nick's point about the insider trading, the fact that Trump tweeted out, now is a good time to buy at the exact moment that the stock market began to rebound, made a lot of people feel like, wait a minute, now actually I'm on the inside of this insider trading, or at least I feel like it, because look, I'm getting signals directly from the president. I must be in his cabinet or something. And I think that's something that for some people, it actually gives them a feeling of inclusion, but really it's just openly rigging the system in your face, and nobody really seems to think that that's a threat. The fact that they're just buying the elections outright this way.
Okay, and now we have to get to the part that I think there seems to be a little bit of tension over, and that is the whole, here we go again with another DSA style candidate, and can this person be trusted? And I think this is where I'm seeing some of the disagreements on social media. I think everybody on this panel is happy that Andrew Cuomo lost, which just say, I think everybody agrees on that. But I think there is some disagreements on whether or not this particular candidate, Zohran, is going to end up like another AOC, and how much can he actually do with the promises that he's making. So this is where some of I think the cons are going to come in. I'll start with you, Terrell, because I know you have a harder stop here. What are some of how do you feel about like those who are saying like, oh God, this guy's going to end up being just like AOC?
Well, I can't say for sure if he will be, because I think it's different on a city level than it is in Congress for the DNC and everything. But here with Zohran, he has to depend on the city council, because at the end of the day, he can make these policies and these demands, but if the city council is not on the side of him, we can't sit and say, oh, he's going to capitulate, but he may. So honestly, I'm not sure. I don't know if he will or he won't. I'm hoping that he won't. Right now, I believe that he's going to stick to his word. But also at the same time, for me, I think it's a different playing field from Congress and the big heads there than in New York City and the state and city leadership. And I think that it's going to depend on the city council. Just like I was saying on Twitter, everybody's voting for Zohran, but the city council elections were also there too. So if they're not voting for city council members who are left leaning, he may have a hard time getting those things passed.
That's a good point. And also the governor, I do want to mention one thing in particular. I know he wanted free public transportation, which can be done, by the way. There's a free bus, I know for sure, in my family's hometown in Baltimore that goes throughout the downtown area. You can hop on. It's a free bus. It's not like this hasn't been done before. So I just want people to realize that when you hear some of the rhetoric that's coming from corporate media, as if some of these things have not already been implemented. One of the things I am worried about, and I'm gonna pivot to you, Nick, is Governor Hochul. So like, for example, with public transportation, that's something that the governor would have to approve, because even though he may want to do that, like she would have to approve it because the public transportation is owned by the state. It's similar here in Massachusetts, where Mayor Wu, who ran on a lot of similar policies to Zohran, and the same thing as Brandon Johnson in Chicago, who ran as a socialist, ran on a lot of these policies. Once they got into office, they capitulated to the establishment. So I think that's the thing that I've been trying to give people that heads up about how much the mayor can actually do and what they need to get approval from for the governor. Nick, your take.
Yeah, they're discussion on whether this guy will sell out, and sorry to be the bearer of bad news, he 100% will. Like, sorry to be spoiler alert for you guys. Name one Democratic socialist, name one progressive politician who was elected who didn't sell out. They all will sell out. It's about managing your expectations. I said on my show before, I'm not in New York. The mayor in New York doesn't really control foreign policy. That's why I focus on. That's why I usually have my eye on these progressives like a hawk. Like when I see Cory Bush vote to give hundreds of billions of dollars to the Nazis in Ukraine instead of the homies in St. Louis, that's a red flag. Zohran Mandami, he's not going to be in control of foreign policy. He's not Jim Crow Joe. He's not someone who's evil. So that you won't ever see me get upset at Mandami supporters because he's not an inherently evil guy. You guys see, I will get upset at you if you support a war criminal. He's not a war criminal. I think he has very cringe takes on foreign policies, and I can do a whole stream about that. But at the end of the day, he won't control it. A lot of people in New York voted for this guy because they were desperate. They wanted to lower the cost of goods. But the problem is, what exactly is Zohran Mandani's strategy to fight the establishment? He calls himself a socialist, but what socialist organization is he accountable to? The DSA? They have a great history of holding politicians accountable, don't they? You had Zohran Mandani. He was elected, correct me wrong, was he a state official? Was he? And this is what Shama Sawan laid out on my show. They had 8 elected DSA officials, Zohran Mandani being one of them. 8. That's a lot. What did they do to leverage their votes to improve the lives of New Yorkers? Will they do anything to put their career on the line in order to fight the establishment that will do everything they can to wage class war against you? Absolutely not. That's why when people ask me, will Zohran sell out? He absolutely will. It's just about managing your expectations. Do you vote for Zohran because you wanted Cuomo to lose? Okay, I guess objective accomplished. Do you expect this guy to actually be able to fight the establishment that he wants to blend in and be a part of? That's absolutely not going to happen. You can already see it with his fake, annoying, smiley campaign. We talk about this all the time, Sabby, this toxic positivity. That is not what needed in the now. That I want to get along. I accept your apology, Senator Gillibrand, for accusing me of being a terrorist. I'm sorry. I don't think this toxic positivity is what we need right now. That's not how you're going to mobilize the masses who are upset. But with that said, there's nothing wrong with being wrong, guys. I'd rather a politician prove me wrong at this point than me be like, oh my God, I was wrong. I thought this guy was going to lower prices. How about one of these politicians prove you wrong for once? How many times have we ever questioned a politician and we was like, man, we was too hard on that guy? That never happened. And until that happened, I will continue to look at Zohran and every single progressive side eye. So that's kind of my answer. I'm not upset at people who support him. I show a lot of grace because I understand where they're coming from. It's not like they voted for evil, but I don't think it's a serious. I actually think it's a waste of our time and our resources. But that's a whole nother conversation. I don't want to go on too long of a spill. That's just generally my vibe. God bless all the New Yorkers who do want to improve their material needs, because I know that's why they wanted to believe in this guy. I got a lot of sympathy for these people, and I hope the best for them. I hope I'm wrong. Straight up, I really do.
Zainab, how are you feeling about this? What's your take on the feeling that he may end up like AOC?
I was there with AOC when she was running in New York. I knocked doors for her and everything. I was her press advisor. And I've talked about this before on here. I had some red flags and some gut feelings about her. I feel like Mamdani is better to a certain extent, is more true to like his platform he's running on now. However, my red flag is more along the lines of this pressure valve. I feel like the No Kings, the whole No Kings protest all across the country, you notice no cop showed up for that. And then all these liberals were like, that was a peaceful protest. See, no cops show up. Even though 95% of the time, who always instigates the violence at every rally we've ever been to, everyone we've ever organized, always the police are the first to instigate, always. So no, they let that happen so the pressure valve can be released. What I'm worried about is Mamdani will send people to having this belief that everything can be solved electorally, that we just wait another year and a half and we can get back on the Justice Democrats train and rah, rah, sis, boom, bah, we'll reform the Democratic Party. We've got a new hero. And I'm worried about him being a new hero, being the new face, instead of the people being the face, instead of the policies being the face, Mamdani being the face. And I know that the establishment is going to throw everything in the world against him. They're going to do like they did with Cori Bush, where they were, getting at her about her credit score, which actually brought more volunteers out for her when they tried to smear her like that, or smear her ironically for her blackness, even though she was running against a black candidate. We're going to see that again. But I am worried that people are going to say we need to wait till November, when Trump today just announced that they want to deport citizens, deport U.S. citizens. They're rounding people up into cargo planes, that the hatches open up mid-flight, can open up mid-flight, where people are shackled. This big, beautiful bullshit bill was just passed. We can't wait. We don't have till November. We don't have the time to reform the Democratic Party. I'm so glad that 40,000 people showed up to door knock for him. That shows amazing momentum. I'm so glad that it proves that support for Israel and AIPAC is weakening. Those are all really, really good things. But I am worried about everyone hitching their wagon to another hero, and then that hero letting everybody down, and then it deflating the movement that we need right now. We don't have a year and a half to wait. People have to get out on the street and organize right now. Electoralism is not going to be the only answer. It's an avenue, but it is not the only answer. People have to mobilize now. And I'm just afraid that leftists and especially liberals have a tendency to get behind a hero, just like they did Bernie or just like they did AOC, and that person let us down. We have to move beyond looking for an electoral hero to save us. We have to build community and save ourselves. And if he is able to move that momentum in that direction, and he's able to rally people in the position he's in, that's what I'm looking for him to do. He needs to move beyond just the policies. Those are extremely important, but then also rallying people behind other actions and organizings happen. If he doesn't do that, I feel like it's just another establishment candidate in sheep's clothing.
Good points, all of you. Let's go to Edwin. You are more familiar with Zohran. I believe he was your assemblyman, correct? What is your take on all of this?
Yes, I've been living in the district for the past 28 years, and which also happens to be AOC's district. And in my experience, there really hasn't been much done by these legislators to make the neighborhood more affordable. In fact, it's only gotten more expensive. The price of a bacon, egg, and cheese, for example, has risen from $3.50 to $5. The rents have skyrocketed, and in part due to people like Mr. Mandami himself, who have moved to the district from places like the Upper West Side or from outside of the city and driving the prices up and actually pushing locals out, which is in itself an irony. I did not vote for Zohran this election, and that's because I'm registered Green, and registered Greens actually cannot vote in closed Democratic primaries. They could only vote in general elections, which do not have ranked choice voting. You only get ranked choice in a primary, so it's kind of an illusion of choice. But we were talking about some of the policies. Nick, you mentioned the MTA. One of the things that Zohran supports to fund the MTA is putting a congestion tax on anyone who drives into Manhattan or from any of the outer boroughs. I can see how if you are ultra wealthy, this wouldn't matter much to you to pay $9 every time you go into Manhattan. But let's say you are a working class small business and you own, I don't know, a small mechanic shop or plumbing shop, and you have to drive your van into the city to for work for some Manhattan clients. Now you actually have to foot that bill unless you want to foot that bill onto your customers, which is not a good move for a small business. So in my opinion, it's the opposite of affordability to be for a tax of $9 just to move throughout the city in a vehicle. I would say that's somewhat antithetical to the affordability argument. I would also say that his position on vaccine mandates, which he supports, is also quite troubling. He mentioned in an interview this year that he would not rehire any of the workers that were fired due to refusing the vaccine. Knowing everything that we know now about natural immunity and just the fact that this is a violation of workers' rights, in particular essential workers like nurses and EMTs and firefighters and such, the fact that he's unwilling to rehire those people is a giant red flag for me. It shows me that if there were any sort of future public health crisis, that he would be probably for lockdowns. Just by virtue of being following the establishment narrative on COVID. So the question of whether or not do I think he would be the next AOC, I would say definitely. The DSA has in New York City has been particularly hostile to the Green Party and Green candidates, and we know nationally that the Democratic Party itself is the all-time high on the scoreboard of suppressing green ballot access. And so by being part of a party that feels so threatened by third-party challengers to their left just proves that they're not really willing to coalition build. So and this has happened even with the March for Medicare for All. Like, we announced it, we said, hey, Chris Smalls is going to be there, Susan Sarandon's going to be there, everyone should come out. DSA held their own rally on a completely different policy issue in a different borough of the city on the same day at the same time, and that was not unintentional. So yeah, I think
I remember this. I'm just sorry,
Yeah.
you're taking me back. Me, Niggs, and like a lot of us remember that. You're taking me back now.
Yeah. So again, I mean, what they're doing in a way, I mean, yes, I'm sure AIPAC does feel threatened, but at the same time, the silver lining for them is that what's happening is all of this movement behind a free Palestine is being funneled into this dark hole of a corporate genocidal party. So if you have this figurehead who's luring people into the duopoly, it's actually doing more harm than good, because it's kind of delaying their enlightenment of exiting that two-party system.
Interesting. Blakely, your take on all of this.
I kind of feel, it's weird. I kind of feel both things but I'm also like happy that he won and a little bit hopeful, but not too hopeful, because I also too was taken in by AOC and I saw how that movie played out. And so I've actually been kind of watching online people on the left kind of argue about this. And I go back and forth. Like, I'll be like, it's a really good point. Yeah, but on the other hand, okay, well, and I'm kind of going back and forth because first of all, I am very happy that I voted for him, because Andrew Cuomo is garbage and absolutely will never be sorry that he didn't win or that I didn't vote for him or Ray Kimettle or whatever. I think that is great. But also, my thing is, some of this is on us. Some of this is also on us, because I see people saying like, well, he's not going to do this and he's not going to do that. And there are some things where I already know they're right, because I know how New York City politics works, and that they're going to throw everything in the fucking kitchen sink at him. You're about to see some of the worst smear campaigns we have ever seen, because our country is so corrupt that even this guy, who I'm so sorry, is not really a socialist. Okay. Like, DSA is just the Democrats who aren't as brutal. Like, there is no actual socialist party. He's running on very light, mild, progressive reforms. Like, hey, we don't want you to eat cat food. Like, that's like what he's running on. So he's not even running, in my view, as like an actual socialist. He's running on very mild reforms. And I am not going to be against that. I would love for a rent freeze. They just raised my rent, even though we've had a mouse infestation in my apartment for over a year, but they raised my rent anyway. And so I absolutely am going to have a little bit of hope. But because of what I learned from Justice Democrats and what I learned from AOC's race and everything else, I'm not going, as kind of Zainab mentioned, I am never going to fall for a politician like that again. I have since learned from Bernie Sanders, from AOC, that what is my part, because they get co-opted by the establishment 100%. But what's my part is thinking that they were going to save me. That is not they're never going to, and it's really not their role. There is a role for us too. And part of that is being realistic about what this system actually is. I don't view voting as the end all be all. It is one tool. That's it. And so I do that, and then I go about doing everything else that I'm doing. So I am looking forward to it a little bit. However, I'm also dreading that I know the attacks are going to come, and they're going to come, and they're going to come. They're going to throw everything they can at him. They are going to work really hard to make sure he fails. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to, what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to immediately write him off. I'm going to see how it goes. I'm going to hope that he does well, but I'm also not going to act like he's the end all be all. He's not a celebrity. He's not my daddy. He's not my friend. He's not my coach. You know, like, he doesn't pay my bills. At the end of the day, politicians need and must be treated with suspicion and disdain. I can't stand the celebrification of celebrities. And again, I've been guilty of it myself. It's exactly how, you know how much Bernie merch I have that I can't even get rid of now once I realized he was a fucking piece of shit Zionist? I have so much Bernie merch. It's ridiculous. Like, but I learned from that you cannot do that with politicians. I'm not going to go out of my way to shit on him every time he tries to do something. But at the same time, I am also going to hold him accountable. I'm not going to treat him like he's a fucking celebrity, because he's not. So that's kind of, I don't know, check in with me in 6 months. I might despise him by then. We'll see. But like, I kind of want to, for this moment, hope that it works out. And I'm not going to lie. There was a moment on election night where for a moment, it felt nice to be like, wow, Andrew Cuomo lost. Like, this is awesome. Like, I definitely had a moment like that.
Yeah, I know. I totally hear you. We were all clapping when Andrew Cuomo lost. And speaking of Andrew Cuomo, there is another question. I'll start with you, Terrell, as well. The demographic data shows that Andrew Cuomo did especially well with lower class neighborhoods. He also did especially well with Black neighborhoods. Zohran, even though the policies that he's running on would greatly benefit lower income neighborhoods, those aren't the neighborhoods that he won. And I think we need to have a conversation about what is happening with these candidates, these DSA candidates that are running on issues that would greatly benefit the working class, but they're not winning those groups. Like, why is Zohran winning middle class and upper middle class like voters instead of the ones that would greatly benefit from his policies? Let's go to Terrell.
So I'm not from New York, nor have I ever visited New York. But I don't know. Do you know? First of all, let me ask you: do you know the age difference between the Black voters who voted for Cuomo? Was there a larger size of people, maybe 40, 50 and older?
Older Black voters voted for Andrew Cuomo.
Okay, so my thing is, from my experience, and I think it's like this in the South. So I'm guessing it's like this for older Black people everywhere else. Is a lot of older Black people and Black people in general, not everyone, but most of them, they take to listen to the mainstream media and news. They take to listen to politicians who they have name recognition for and who've been in office. And from my experience here dealing with older voters, I always hear things like, oh, they know what they're doing. They've been in office for a long time. And for me, it's like a lot of Black people look at these either older Black politicians or politicians who've been in office, who dress in nice suits, talk eloquently, seems very college educated, and they trust them more than they trust themselves because on some sort of level, they feel like they're not as smart as them. So they're going to have to trust them. And this is the problem with a lot of the older Black generation and some of the Black generation, not all, but a lot of them. And I've seen this from experience. Like, I had a conversation with somebody before, and we were discussing Nancy Pelosi and her little game that she plays. And it was like, and then the answer from the older person to me was, well, she's been doing this a long time. She knows what she's doing. I'm like, she's been doing it for a long time, and she's been gaming everybody since she's been doing it. And you think that she knows what she's doing. And at the same time, like I said, older Black voters and majority of other Black voters, they listen to the news and media when the news and media say, oh, this is the most viable candidate, or this is the candidate that seems going to be ahead of the lead. They listen to that. And I think a lot of the reason why they voted for Cuomo is for familiarity and because they don't believe in these socialist policies. They it's like on one hand, they want them, because I hear people complain about so many things all the time, especially in the Black community. But when there are socialist policies that offers the resolution, it's like, yeah, that sounds good, but we don't believe it can be done. And that is the problem with the older Black generation and a lot of Black voters. Things sound too good to be true, so they never will vote for it. If it sounds too good to be true, it's like, I don't know, this America has, in a large portion of the Black community, America has driven Black voters to believe if it's too good to be true, it's never going to happen, not in America. And I think that's the thing that a lot of Black voters have. That's the idea a lot of Black voters have about socialism. It sounds good, but I don't think it's ever going to happen in America. That's where they stand on those policies, a lot of them. They don't believe it could ever happen.
But this is the same, some of the same generation that was around during the civil rights movement, though. Nick, what's your take on this? This is very like disturbing to me, because I remember all of us that came from like the Bernie movement and stuff. I remember like I had the most difficult time with older voters because they were just like, or they would tell me, I was like, yeah, Medicare for all. I already got Medicare. Like I was just like, wow, way to be dismissive. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, a few things.
Okay.
First thing, people underestimate how much damage Barack Obama has done. Barack Obama shifted an entire generation of Black Americans to the right. Like, Black Americans, even the Black Congressional Caucus, who was never perfect, they always had a record of being the most anti-war. And in order to rationalize Obama being a crazy warmonger, the Black community shifted to the right with Barack Obama, which once again, that's going to have massive damage to our community politically. It will be studied for a very long time. We'll go to the second point. We'll go to why the overall strategy of reforming the Democratic Party is a horrible idea. We discussed this before, Sabby. I discussed this with my brothers at Due Distance as well. A lot of people underestimate the fact that many Democratic Party voters don't want a revolution. Like, there's too much obsession over liberals being our allies. And people don't understand, if you're a revolutionary, if you're a socialist, these liberals are meant to be defeated. There will be these 30% that will always vote against you because they are your class enemy, which go back to misanalysis. The reason why social democrats believe in taking on the Democratic Party, because they inherently believe that liberals have their class interests in mind, which is not the case. So you can have a great candidate, a great platform. You will have a large swath of the Democratic Party that will vote against you because they side and they are more emotionally connected to the Hakeem Jeffries of the party than they are with you. They're more connected with Jim Clyburn than they are with you, which is why the left in the United States has failed to create any substantial movement the way that Zohran will fail. Who is the most successful left-wing leader in our hemisphere? One of the most successful left-wing leaders in the world right now. Claudia Sheinbaum of Mexico. What did Claudia Sheinbaum did? What did AMLO do? They created their own party in 2011. They created their own party in 2011. They had candidates running everywhere by 2016, and now they hold national power. What I've been asking DSA people, and this is why they avoid me, what we've been asking for years, Sabby, which is the uncomfortable question, is show me the historical precedent of this take over the Democratic Party strategy. Entryism is a proven failure. And if you want actual success, if you are an actual socialist, what you would do is form a socialist organization so we can have a long-term plan like the Morena Party in Mexico. There's a reason why they got wins, because they didn't fall for the tranquilizing drug of entryism, because they actually did the work and created their own party. Let's go back to my original point. I end it here because once again, I can run on this all day. My original point is, when people support people like Zohran and these good progressive Democrats, it takes resources which will otherwise go to a potential Morena party. Look, we're not capitalists. We're not like Zionists. We don't have an endless funnel of resources. For every dollar that we donate to a Democratic candidate, that's a dollar we don't spend on building a third party. And that's why I want people to understand. It's a tough conversation. It's a tough thing to ask people to do. And I know every single, politics is different. This is a conversation for another day. I know New York have their own unique system. But when we talk about a national strategy, we got to get serious and looking at what actually worked in history. What worked in history is building your own party that's disciplined, that has a set of values that won't bend, right? But anyway, I'll pass the panel because you guys can riff on this kind of stuff all day. Go ahead.
All right, let's go ahead and go to Zeneb. Why are they not winning these voters that the policies would greatly benefit?
I think it's a mix of things. You know, this is a primary, so this had to be already registered Democrats. And so when thinking about that, the Democrats have been bleeding their voter rolls for the last 10 years, right? So a lot of the people that are left standing as it's still a registered Democrat are diehard Democrats, are people that are still kind of beholden to and embedded in the system. So, and still kind of believe in the duality that this is the greater good, you know, rather than the lesser evil. So when they've lost 23% of what they had remaining in 2025 in January, like, fled the voter rolls. So I don't know if this turnout is indicative of like a wide pattern within those demographics in general. You know what I mean? I think it's maybe more indicative of who shows up to vote for Democrats still. you know. But I do think Zohran Mandami was different. But when it comes to the diehard people still supporting Cuomo after all this time, I can't really speak to that too much. I can only speak to it nationally, but I think that Nick and Terrell made really good points, very insightful. But I will say that when it comes to third parties, I completely agree. It can take years to build a third party. It can take up to a decade because every single state has completely different rules for ballot access and for party line status. And it is but you know what's crazy? And I meant to message you this, Sabby, because I thought this was so wild. So Eric Adams is now talking about either running independent, and Cuomo's talking about starting his own party to run. And I'm like, you idiots, you can't just right before the election start a party in New York out of nowhere. Like, that's not how this works. But the irony that all the Democratic Party ever does is smear third party and independent voters and third party and independent candidates, then to now have the establishment saying, well, if we lose to a progressive, we're just going to run independent ourselves, or we're going to run third party. And then you have political pundits saying how brilliant this is on corporate media. Like, oh, this is a brilliant strategy. This is a great strategy. If more Democrats can do that, we can make sure that moderates, you know, that this new radical wave of leftism that's infiltrated the millennials and Gen Z can be like beaten out, you know. But I think that was wild, thinking back on how much we've talked about third parties over the years and how much, you know, we've tried to support and push for alternatives and for people to run indie, that Eric Adams and Cuomo's just like, yeah, we'll run independent. And then all of a sudden, these same people that smeared our candidates running outside of the party, that smeared third party candidates, that threw everything at them that they possibly could, are now like, oh, this is such a brand new concept. We've never heard of this before. Wow, this is brilliant. I'm like, God, the irony. But what we're seeing there, though, is that the Democratic establishment will be willing to do anything, even run outside of the party, as long as they defeat someone who's on the left, no matter what. They're always going to. I had them supporting, for instance, when Paula Jean Swearingen was running in West Virginia, they backed Shelley Moore Capito when Paula Jean ran her, when she won her primary. The Democratic Party, the DNC, backed Shelley Moore Capito, the Republican, in a Senate race. And I can tell you that story 40 times over. So that's what they're going to do. So our strategy, why try to reform the Democratic Party when they're going to run independent themselves? So that just validates that independence could be a way to run and win. And we, you know, I do believe in building, and I'll wrap this up. I'll land the plane here, but I support building a third party. I support running Greens, running other parties, but I also always say running independent is an option. Running independent is always an option. And I think, and I'm telling you this to be honest, I think Mandami would have done just as well running independent as he has done running in the primary. I see why he wanted to take out Cuomo. That's a great strategy. But anywhere up and down the ballot, people can run independent fairly easily. And that's where the country's shifting. And I think Mamdani's win isn't some like referendum on people supporting the Democratic Party. I think it's the opposite. I think it's a turnout kind of against the party establishment rather than for it. So that gives me hope for more independent and more third party candidates moving forward, even though he's not Indian, he's not third party.
And we will know sorry, Sabby. I just want to quickly say we would know if Zohran and their people are serious if they come out and support Shama Sawan, and they come out and support independent socialists. Because if they don't, what does that say? That just say that they are just a movement that support Democrats, right? But I'm sorry, Sabby, go ahead.
Yeah, so Blakely, this point here, I think this is why a lot of people ended up voting for him, right? Was rent. Rent is really expensive. This happened earlier this morning.
Oh, NYC,
I know. NYC Rent Board approves a 3% increase, rejecting calls for a freeze. Mayor Eric Adams, who appointed the Rent Guidelines Board, has attacked Zohran Mandami's pledge to freeze the rent if he becomes mayor. Although, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe Bill de Blasio, when he was mayor of New York City, I thought he also froze the rent. But I think this is what I mean when I say policies that would greatly benefit like lower income communities. Go ahead, Blakely.
Something that you said that stood out to me just now was about older Black voters, or maybe it was Nick that said it. Zohran actually won a huge majority of young voters, over 60% of all young voters. He won Black neighborhoods that have never voted for Democrats before. He won Bed-Stuy, it was Bed-Stuy plus 43, Crown Heights, which Crown Heights is crazy because Crown Heights not only has a lot of Black people in it still, it has a lot of Jewish people, a lot of Orthodox Jews live in Crown Heights. So he won a lot. East Flatbush, East Flatbush was Cuomo. So Zohran won not only people under 60% of people under 40, he also won in neighborhoods that generally don't go for candidates like him. Cuomo did win some Black neighborhoods like East New York and Midwood, but he also won really white Orthodox Jewish neighborhoods like the Upper West Side. So what I think it is personally, especially since I talk to a lot of people living in New York, is one of the things was, and Eric Adams actually just said this, he had a rally with a bunch of older Black people that were at this rally. He said, we're not asking for handouts. This is stupid. It's unrealistic. And there were all these people behind him being like, yep, like cheering him that he's making fun of this. And when he raises the rent cap, he turns around and tries to sell that to the people that he's now trying to get to vote for him, that he is going to hurt. So I honestly think that it's a little bit of what both Terrell and Nick said. I think some of it is Obama moving the party to the right, moving Black voters to the right, specifically older Black voters over 50. But also, I think some of it is Black voters have been conditioned in this country by the Democratic Party. Don't ask for shit, or else it's going to get a lot worse for you. That is why I think so many young Black voters voted for Mandami, because it was ranked choice voting. And Black people oftentimes are told, just like they were about Bernie Sanders, and also what they were told about Obama, because you'll remember during Obama's campaign, they said that Black voters were very skeptical of him until they saw he could win the whites. So a lot of times it's Black voters being skeptical, like, I don't know if this, but they didn't have to do that this time in the primary because of the fact that we had ranked choice voting. So Zohran's coalition is actually, like, regardless of what you think about it, was actually very impressive. He won like large 2 out of 3 Latino voters. He won people who had turned and voted for Trump. Like, it was, yes, Cuomo did win some demographics, but like, I wouldn't sneeze at the coalition that Zohran built. And to jump off that, my worry because of that is that it's going to just get funneled in the Democratic Party, because I don't want to see that. The Democratic Party is trash. I want a third party, okay? Not DSA, because I saw Shoykat Chakrabarti, who I think is a very smart guy, talking about how he's going to take on Nancy Pelosi. And you know what he said in his campaign video? And honestly, I was kind of liking it. I'm like, hey, I kind of like what you're saying. Then he goes, that way, when I win, we'll elect a whole slew of Democratic Socialist candidates that we're going to take on the establishment from the inside. I was like, excuse me, am I back in 2018? We already saw this. I'm not trying to sound like a dick or anything, because again, like, I understand the need to be hopeful, and I want to be too at some points. But when it comes to the reason why I was excited about Zohran is because he's running for mayor. When it comes to congressional candidates at the state level, I'm not excited. I'm not hopeful. The whole project of the Democratic Party is to trash the left, trash the progressives, crush them, run the most right-wing deranged Zionist bullshit campaigns against the left that they can. And then if the left even slightly objects to it, they're like, why are you anti-Semitic? Why are you racist? Why do you hate Black people? Why do you hate women? Why do you hate trans people? And they do that whole routine. And then it's like, and they're not going to do it. We saw this happen because I was very hopeful about everyone like Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman. And what happened when they went in there? They got crushed, and either they're gone now, or like AOC, they got co-opted. And that is the only thing that happens when they run for Congress. So that is why, like, I do have some hope. But again, I'm not delusional and I'm not naive. The responsibility of the voter now, people like me, is to hold Mandami accountable. But yeah, when it comes to national electoral politics, I'm done with the Democrats. First of all, you guys are genocidal. Okay. I'm not voting for people who fund genocide and murder Palestinians. That's number one. That's kind of a red line for me. But second of all, I'm so tired of these clowns because they don't actually want to change anything. They absolutely don't, which is why I don't fuck with DSA, because they're not actually going to change anything. They're going to go in and they're going to get co-opted or they're going to get crushed. And there is no point when we could actually be building a third party. When I saw Elon Musk post, oh, we should have another party, I'm like, we should have at least four. At least four. We should at least have like a Labor Party. The fact that the Democratic Party regularly kicks progressives in the face and then shits on them is like, and then progressives turn around and go, please, sir, can I have another? Sure. Like it's just, it's maddening. It's maddening. It needs to stop. There should actually be like a viable like third party that we can have. And people, I don't think are helping by funneling national candidates into the Democratic Party, because what happens when the Democratic Party doesn't get its fucking way? They side with Republicans, or they did what they did to India Walton when India Walton won in upstate New York, and then bitches ran that guy against her in the general election as an independent so he could win, because, you know, they love Black women until a progressive wins, and then it's under the bus.
Well said, Blakely. Edwin.
Yeah, so a few things. One, Zohran will be on a minor party ballot line called the Working Families Party, because in New York City, there's a thing called fusion voting where he can be both Democrat and Working Families. Now, Working Families in New York is basically an extension arm of the Democratic Party, so it's not the same as running as a true third party candidate. What Cuomo and Adams are doing is actually a decision that they made prior to the primary. The independent ballot line, the deadline to circulate those petitions, which are separate from their Democrat petitions, was in late April, and it usually is more signatures than running as a Democrat. Maybe not for mayor, it might be the same amount of signatures actually, but either way, they submitted that before they even found out that Cuomo lost the primary. So they're on the ballot. It's just a question of whether or not Cuomo is going to actively campaign, just like Bernie was on the ballot here in 2020, but he suspended his campaign after his debate with Biden. What I will say, and also ironically, it was Cuomo himself who actually kicked off various third parties from the ballot. That may or may not could have actually helped him this time around by not having removed all that ballot access. But to go back to the original question of, you know, low income voters and the way that they perhaps view these DSA-like candidates, Zohran is a kind of a anomaly, right? He's a class traitor. He comes from a very lavish lifestyle, right? He had a very fancy apartment in the Upper West Side that he was living in, didn't necessarily have to pay to live, or, you know, kind of moved to Astoria in 2018 and then started paying rent, but only because you really need to be living there for a couple of years in order to run for state office, which is why a lot of politicians move to.
What kind of life is this?
But I will say, look,
doesn't have to pay rent.
He has a great life. Actually, he had an engagement party in Dubai with his fiance that nobody knows about, that he kind of kept hidden from the public. Again, not even a wedding, just an engagement party that was very lavish. And for someone, you know, who kind of talks a lot about like riding the subway and is always posting selfies riding the subway, he posted a photo of him eating a burrito, and the burrito was on the subway seat and he was eating it with a fork and knife, which any real New Yorker who rides the subway will tell you that's very much frowned upon and rude and kind of disgusting. So it actually kind of, that was an example of like a little like out of touchness that was shown there. I wonder if people can kind of see through this a little bit, where it's like, how do you really, like, you can kind of like sympathize with the working class, but if you didn't really grow up with the struggle, how could you truly understand it? I do think that, you know, like a rent freeze, you know, a lot of people might think that their rent is actually going to get frozen. it only applies to rent stabilized apartments. So if you have a market rate apartment and your rent is going up, it's going to continue going up and it's going to continue being unaffordable. And so only the ones that are rent stabilized would benefit from such a freeze. But a very important caveat and a provision that would have to be included in a policy like that is some sort of incentive to have the landlords actually repair those apartments, because they could really just do one of two things. If they can't raise their rent, they will stop making repairs and you will have people living in moldy apartments or, getting Lyme disease from ticks that are on the rats like they do in the NYCHA projects. Or they can sell their properties to BlackRock. And I wouldn't be surprised if you have landlords selling these buildings to big banks and to private equity, if there's no safeguards in place, that would kind of incentivize them to keep these buildings and to keep, maintaining them. So that's just one thing that might be important to kind of look out for going forward. And then the last thing that I want to say is, you have a cohort of the Democrat Party, which are kind of LARPing as revolutionaries, but it's this group of people that all settled for Joe Biden in 2020, who was a warmonger. And so it's not really, in my view, a revolutionary movement. It's kind of just a new wave of social democrat, which is the same old Democrat Party, just repackaged and repurposed, but ultimately propping up that oligarchic two-party system.
Well said there, Edwin. One more question for the panel, you guys. I've been seeing a number of the remarks directed towards Zohran on social media that I feel are really disgusting and unfair. One in particular, Congressman Brandon. This is a congressman, everybody. Civilized people in America don't eat like this. If you refuse to adopt Western customs, go back to the third world. He's talking about Zohran here eating with his hands, which, by the way, if you go to any of the African restaurants here or like the Ethiopian restaurants here, you do eat with your hands. You sit at a basket table and you eat with your hands. Whatever it is, what it is.
So do Americans, like McDonald's.
I've seen a number of look, it is what it is. Like, what I've basically said to people is like, don't look at this guy as like some hero or savior, etc. At the same time, some of these attacks that are thrown his way, whether it's from Congressman Brandon Gill or Kirsten Gillibrand's racist ass comment, like, it's coming from both sides. It's coming from the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. It's to me, I feel like it's absolutely disgusting. And they are actually helping Zohran by showing just how blatantly racist they can be. So I'll open that up to the panel, how you guys feel about some of these comments that have been said. Nick.
You guys know this is the most diehard Zionist politicians who are usually the ones who are stoking some sort of racial tensions. They're the most Islamic phobic people in our society. And it's wild. And I think a lot of people are realizing the giant bait and switch that Zionists did, and they convinced an entire generation that Muslims was going to implement Sharia law in the United States, and they created an entire generation of intense Islamophobia to inherently justify the existence of Zionism. In order to justify the existence of Zionism, they had to convince people that Muslims are evil, that people who practice Islam is trying to secretly take over Western society. And isn't it funny that everything they accuse them of, they're guilty of? But that's exactly what they're doing. So in order to keep people divided, I know it's a trope, but it's 100% true. The capitalist class, the ruling class, wants to keep people focused on the racial issues, on what religion is what religion, because it makes you focus less on struggle, jihad. They're afraid of the struggle that connects us all. So you will see these people always engage in this crazy nonsense. It plays directly into their power, and it backfires. We are seeing, like you said, these attacks backfire. So it's just a typical strategy for the ruling class to keep people divided based on nonsense. You know what I mean?
All right, Zainab.
Of course, I think it's disgusting. I mean, we've been seeing this kind of rhetoric post, 9/11. We've been seeing it for as long as I can remember in almost all of my adult life. As like, my dad was an Iranian immigrant. I've seen it my whole life, but this whole thing that I see as a development is tied to legislation too right now. And I wanted to point that out because they're talking about people like Brandon Gill and others have floated, and Charlie Kirk have floated this idea that he needs to be denaturalized as a citizen and deported. And this rhetoric, the thing is rhetoric is now not just bullshit rhetoric, right? It's now turning into actual legislation. And these calls are directly in parallel with recent policy by the Trump administration that some members of Congress support, especially Zionist members of Congress, to deport or denaturalize, and this was just reported on 2 days ago, to deport and denaturalize U.S. citizens, potentially, who have supported, who are anti-genocide, who are critical of Israel, and who are pro-Palestinian. And they're literally talking about deporting and denaturalizing in order to prevent, quote unquote, anti-Semitism. So I see this directly tied to that. I think this propaganda is directly tied to that. And I think it's tied to this greater goal in order to depopulate. They're racist, jackbooted, ICE thug concentration camp, alligator Alcatraz, all of that's going on. This toward Mandami is tied to that. And it's absolutely tied to the IDF and to AIPAC and to the Israel lobby as well. All of it's connected. So when I see this rhetoric, especially coming from Democrats, I'm reminded of just, what was it, 3 weeks ago when Schumer came out and was talking about how we need to bomb Iran. We need to prevent them from having a nuclear weapon. This was before the report came out from the IAEA even. So the rhetoric is coming from both parties. And what I really worry about is that this rhetoric is to normalize denaturalizing people like us, or, removing people like us, removing people that speak out against Israel, which they already have been doing anyway, but taking it even a step further. The Islamophobia, the stoking of Islamophobia, and it's not landing. It's not landing. And AIPAC's freaking out because this man won his primary in New York, where they thought they would always have just an easy win, right? They thought New York was guaranteed, and it's not. So they're more afraid. So as they're more afraid, not really afraid, they're afraid of losing control, not any other kind of fear. The billionaires are afraid. AIPAC is afraid. Those in power are afraid of losing control. And with that, they're going to ramp up the hatefulness. And Brandon Gill's like the biggest fascist out there. He's basically a neo-Nazi. If you guys follow his account and see his insane rhetoric he posts every day, and the fact that he's a member of Congress saying, spreading a birth of a nation type propaganda every day is extremely concerning. He's not fit for office, but that's where we're at. And I do think that this Islamophobia, and I do think the hate that we're seeing from toward Zohran is something that's a greater initiative in order to normalize this kind of dehumanization.
Interesting. Blakely, and then we'll end with Edwin.
Yeah. So as the resident white person here, I grew up as a kid of 9/11. And when I was growing up, it was taught to me pretty early that racism is really, really bad against Latinos and Black people, but it's totally fine if it is against Muslims and Arabs, because they're scary and they don't live like us. They want to kill us all. They want to take away our freedoms and our way of life. So growing up under that, and then realizing how much I'd been propagandized against Muslims and Arabs who I never met until I was an adult and moved to the East Coast. I don't think I ever met an Arab person until I was living in Boston when I was 20. So it's always easier to fearmonger and demonize people when you don't know them. And they're a small minority. And I think that, kind of to what Zainab was saying, this is all connected, and that part of it is Zionists that are using this as a way to demonize people who criticize the genocidal Israeli regime. And then part of this is the right-wing fascists who want the Stephen Millers of the world, who want to denaturalize people and deport them, which is why what they're saying about Zohran is so dangerous. But they also want to end birthright citizenship, which they're not kidding when they say they want to do that. They want this. These people are white supremacists. They want this country to be white only. They only want white people to have power. And I see people trying to get, and at the end of the day, like, I see other people trying to like assimilate themselves into whiteness. You know, you see people like Vivek Ramaswamy being like, hey, can I be white? Or you see people like, you know, Latinos that'll like be like, oh, well, I'm white passing and my dad's Cuban. It's like, they don't like any of you. I'm telling you, I've known racist white people my whole life. They don't like any of you. Like, and you're never going to assimilate. That's why Vivek Ramaswamy talked to Ann Coulter and she's like, I really like you, but like, I would never vote for you because you're like brown, like you're like Indian. And that Brandon Gillis guy is married to an Indian woman. Like, no, they're so racist, but not for them. But not for them. You know, it's like the classic, like, you know, white slave owner who, you know, does that kind of stuff to Black women. So I don't want to say it and get in trouble, but it's so disgusting. And what upsets me so much about it is acceptance in our culture that no one is pushing back against it. That the Democrats, instead of pushing back against it, are contributing to the Islamophobia and the hatred toward him. It is so despicable watching Kirsten Gillibrand get on that phone call with that guy like a fucking Karen and be like, he's calling for global jihad. And then like, no one's demanding she resign except for me. Like, I'm like, not that she's listening to me, but I am her constituent. And then you've got demons in Congress like Randy Fine. He is an actual demon. You can't convince me otherwise. I'm a Christian. I believe in the spiritual realm, folks. That guy is a demon, okay? And he literally is sitting there and talking about how not only should all Muslim and Arab people be deported, but that he wants the streets of Gaza to overflow with blood. And then no one calls him, where's censure? Where's the censure? And the reason why it's so fucking enraging, coming specifically from the Democrats, is because they make a big stink about everything. But you see this blatant, disgusting, hysterical Islamophobia 9/11 comments about Zohran, and they're nowhere to be found. There are no condemnations, no call for resignations, no call for censure. They censured Rashida Tlaib for saying from the river to the sea. But then they're not calling to censure them. And again, it's because they're all fucking hacks. Hack AIPAC shill NPC fucking Hakeem Jeffries is not going to come out there and defend Zohran because his fucking daddy donors over in AIPAC don't want them to. And the same thing goes with Chuck, let's bomb Iran or else you're Taco Trump Schumer, who also isn't going to say anything because that bitch is also owned by the Israeli regime and admitted that his entire reason for being in the Senate was to keep the left pro-Israel, which good luck with that guy because it's failing. So I just keep telling everybody to keep speaking out about it because I think especially white people, because they're not going to face any danger by speaking out against it because they're not a marginalized person. And it is incumbent upon people to stand up for all Muslim people, all Arab people, all South Asian people, because white people are so racist, they don't even realize that he's South Asian. They just see a brown person. So people need to understand what is actually happening and protect people because this is only going to get worse, unfortunately. And I just hope that Zohran is safe, personally. That nobody.
Yeah, it's really ridiculous. Edwin, wanted to get your take on this too.
Yeah, I mean, the way this administration is treating immigrants is absolutely abhorrent. I don't know if anybody's seen the latest alligator Alcatraz project that Trump and DeSantis just championed, but they're very reminiscent of Japanese internment camps that this country had back in the 1940s, could potentially even be worse. You have a scenario where people are going to be placed in this like encampment that's built with tents surrounded by alligators. So the thought process is probably like, if you try escaping, you'll get eaten by an alligator. I think it's very clear that this administration just wants them to die. And it's very, very alarming. I think a lot of people, including people I know who ended up voting for Trump, didn't realize just how serious he was when he says he was going to come after and deport all of these immigrants. And a lot of people in small towns didn't realize that their neighborhood clerk or grocery store person was someone who could get deported, and people like that are getting deported. And it's shocking waves of these Trump supporters into realizing, like, what have I done in getting my own neighbor taken away when, you know, they were this good person. So yeah, I mean, the Islamophobia coming from politicians is absolutely insane. I would say that, you know, what they're doing is they're trying to bait us into some sort of race war because they don't want us to have a class war. Because if we were class conscious, that would lead to more of, you know, an actual revolution. So they want us to be hateful and divided so that if we're too busy kind of falling for these tropes and fighting each other, that we're not actually going to look at the actual source of oppression, which is, you know, Wall Street, military industrial complex, big pharma, fossil fuel industry, the healthcare industry, et cetera. Instead of pointing the finger at them, they want you pointing your finger at your neighbor. And there are legitimate policy debates and discussions that could be happening, but they're not, because we're still in this like archaic way of treating people as other. And it's a scary time for a lot of people, especially in New York, which is a city of immigrants.
Can I say something real quick? Just real quick, Sabby, do you mind? Can I say something? I want to stress to you guys, please log off and also talk to people in real life as well. Like, I can't share my screen. I showed this on RBN. Do you guys understand the advanced system of troll farms that exists right now? That there are millions of bots that are saying stuff in order to trigger you? Because there's an advanced, and history will explain what's really going on in time. But there is an advanced psychological operation waged against us at all times to keep us distrustful of each other. Why do you guys think before the era of the troll farm, they on news, they will show all murders all the time? This guy was killed over there. This woman was raped over there. This happened over there. The local news, they played a role in keeping you distrustful. Now troll farms are doing the same, pushing out insanely racist messaging and trying to dull your view of humanity. And remember, and I'm speaking, I guess, for my socialists and revolutionaries, we are the people who believe in the potential of humanity. And I see it happens all the time because of these troll farms, because of these crazy racist messages that we see fake accounts spread. People, they dull their view of humanity. They say, what's the point? What's the point of fighting for revolution? Humanity is garbage. Humanity is racist. Humanity is irredeemable. You guys see why they do it? I'm not saying it's not a problem, but a lot of people, because people are way too online, and I am too. I'm not being holier than now. I'm online a lot as well. But because of that, I think people, their perception of humanity has been warped because of these troll farms, making them less likely to talk to each other, to be less likely to go outside, to be scared of the stranger. I think that's the plan of the ruling class. We must reject that. Go outside, talk to people, and you'll realize everything you see online is just noise. I live in Missouri, extremely conservative state, and I see it all the time. So I don't want to be too long, but please, I don't want you guys to be too dull by this stuff. A lot of this stuff.
Nick, the IDF has 20,000 Pakistanis. A lot of them are Pakistani, but anywhere from 15 to 20,000 that we know of. And this is being filtered, some of it through Palantir, doing literal Hasbara every day online, not to mention all the stacked algorithms and everything. But yeah, a lot of times you could literally be seeing an IDF Hasbara troll that's being paid through the Israel lobby. Just fact.
Just keep that in mind, guys. Like, there is a lot of negativity, but I think a lot of it has been pumped into our algorithm as well. So just keep that in mind.
Yes. Yeah, it's true. This is why I don't really try to argue with people online. I ignore a lot of people. Thank you all so much for coming on.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me on, Sabby.
Thanks, Sabby.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Proud of you,
Thanks,
Sabby.
everyone.
Bye, guys. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that panel there. We do have 4 news stories that I do want to cover. It's been a pretty crazy week. Tonight's theme, ladies and gentlemen, is snap out of it. Snap out of it, ladies and gentlemen. And I hope you'll get that theme with these stories. Let's go ahead and go to some of the comments here, ladies and gentlemen, and then we will get to the other stories. Dun, dun, dun. All righty. Shout out to Kevin L. Hunt for becoming a Sabby member. Let's give Kevin a big whoop, whoop. Yeah. Thank you for the super sticker, S. Jera. Thank you, Mr. Gooch. Why can't the question ever be, do we, the people, have a right to exist? It's a good question there. Shout out to M. Carranza. Also became a Sabby member. Let's give them a big whoop, whoop. Thank you, Roger. Assemblyman of New York State Assembly Nick asking to U.S. House. Not sure what you mean there. I think you were talking about Zohran being Assemblyman of New York. Thank you, Perry. Trump's bill will pass in part because white workers support it because of racism directed at immigrants. How do we progress when part of the working class continues to vote against its interests? That is a big problem. We're about to get into that story. So we're going to show you how this is going to impact everybody. I think people are just going to have to see what happens. I think people are going to have to see how they are impacted. That's the only way I think that things are actually going to change on that front. Greg Bruce says, I always celebrate when the Yankees lose in the playoffs, even if I'm a diehard fan of the opposing team. Thank you, Roger. Bingo, give that man a prize. Thanks, Nia. Republicans were third party when abolishing slavery. That is true. Thank you, Roger. Dems backed Nixon over McGovern, then created super delegates. Yes, someone knows their history. Thank you, Justin. For those who want a third party, I'd love to talk with those interested in about the strategy to get that party. Spoiler, in my honest opinion, it has been based on the Green Party and its ballot access. Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Zoe. Dubai engagement party just confirms the liberal Zionist allegations. Thank you, Roger. Jesus ran for Jesus. Jesus ran for New York State legislature. Okay, sorry. Jesus ran for New York State legislator, push amendment to make New York a CBI state. Thank you, Kenman. Gillibrand is attractive, though. And thank you, China. Please cover the Philadelphia sanitation strike. I have to look into that story. I haven't had a chance to read all of it yet. So hopefully I get to cover that on Thursday. Even this, I just wanted to say thank you, Jesus. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't done so, could you do me a favor? Could you do me a solid and smash that like? If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share, just like a Care Bear. And we're going to move on to the next story. So a big story, probably one of the biggest stories of this week, is the big, beautiful bill. And I do want to give you the update about that. So the bill did reach the Senate, and the Senate decided to make revisions to Trump's current bill. And I do want to show you what those revisions look like. And I want to explain to you how this may impact you. So from what I understand, this bill has now being passed back to the House because they did revise the bill. Now, there was a tie. Imagine that. There was a tie in the Senate for this particular bill. And guess who wiggled their way in to break the tie? Watch this.
On this vote, the yeas are 50, the nays are 50. The Senate being evenly divided, the Vice President votes in the affirmative. The bill as amended is passed.
So there you have it. The so-called big, beautiful bill is now past the Senate floor. As close as it gets, a 50-50 vote here with Vice President J.D. Vance casting that tie-breaking vote. I want to bring in Jay O'Brien, who's there on Capitol Hill. Jay, you heard.
So as you guys can see, it was 50 yay, 50 nay there. And again, this is one of those times where the vice president can come in and they are the tiebreaker instead of, notice he didn't like deflect to the Senate parliamentarian. He came in and he broke the tie. And that's how the bill was able to pass. Now, I want to explain to you how this is going to impact you. And also, there seems to be quite a bit of a divide that's happening. Donald Trump and Elon Musk are at each other's throats again because Elon Musk is not happy that this bill passed in the Senate. I think he kind of feels like it's a slap in the face to him because he was the one that was a part of DOGE. So let me show you what the current Senate revision says. So check this out. So number one, tax cuts are the priority. Republicans say the bill is crucial because there will be a massive tax increase after December when taxes break from Trump's first term expire. The legislation contains roughly $3.8 trillion in tax cuts. But listen to this. The existing tax rates and brackets would become permanent under the bill. It temporarily would add new tax breaks that Trump campaigned on. No tax on tips, overtime pay, or some automotive loans, along with a bigger $6,000 deduction in the Senate draft for older adults who earn more than $75,000 a year. One thing I want to mention here about the no tax on tips, that's now being means tested. So it is important for me to mention that to you because is not as what we were told it was going to be. So, you guys know how I feel about means testing. I don't like it. I don't like when people means test these policies. Now, here's another one here. It would boost the 2,000 child tax credit to 2,200 under the Senate proposal. Families at lower income levels would not see the full amount. So do you see this? A cap on state and local deductions called SALT would quadruple to 40,000 for 5 years. It's a provision important to New York and other high tax states, though the House wanted it to last for 10 years. There are scores of business related tax cuts. So, like I said, you see who they're benefiting, right? The wealthiest households will see a $12,000 increase from the legislation, which would cost the poorest people $1,600 per year. They are taking from the poor and giving to the rich. Everything that I've seen so far, this is not good for working class people. Why are wealthy households getting an increase of $12,000? Why are they getting an increase? They don't need an increase. So do you see how they just keep taking from poor people and lower income people and giving to the rich? Yeah. This is why I wanted to go through this so you guys can see what this says. More money for deportation, a border wall, and the Golden Dome. $350 billion for border and national security agenda, including $46 billion for the U.S.-Mexico border wall and $45 billion for 100,000 migrant detention facility beds. So you see how they can come up with all this money? All of this money they can come up with, but not for the working people. This is why I had to go through this to show you guys once again, look at where the money is going. You need to know this, right? Money would go for hiring 10,000 new immigration ICE officers, $10,000 signing bonus, and a surge of Border Patrol officers as well. The goal is to deport some 1 million people per year. Look at the signing bonus that they're getting, $10,000. You get a $10,000 sign-in bonus? Because I sure as hell never got any type of sign-in bonus. Homeland Security Secretary would have a new $10 billion fund for grants for states that help with federal immigration enforcement and deportation actions. See how they can come up with money for what they want it for? The Attorney General would have $3.5 billion for a similar fund known as Bridging Immigration-Related Deficits Experienced Nationwide, or Biden. Interesting, is known as Biden. Isn't that funny? Referring to President Biden. Check this part out. The Pentagon. The bill would provide billions for shipbuilding, munition systems, and quality of life measures for servicemen and women, as well as $25 billion for the development of the Golden Dome missile defense system. Again, more money going towards defense. Do you see money going towards the people yet? So you see this whole idea of socialism's bad and we don't want to give people things. We don't want to do handouts. They're giving handouts to the wealthiest households. Like I said, they've always accepted this type of socialism for the rich. But when working class people are asking for it, no, we don't do handouts. This is a really important one, especially if you're on Medicaid or you know someone that is on Medicaid. Cuts to Medicaids and other programs to help partly offset the lost tax revenue and new spending. Republicans aim to cut back some long-running government programs, Medicaid, food stamps, green energy initiatives, and others. Do you see this? Medicaid, food stamps, green energy initiatives, and others. So, and this is something I really want to shout out here, and then we'll get to the other part. If you're on Medicaid and you live in a rural area, you might want to pay attention, because what you're going to see with this bill is that they're pushing more things back to the states. Remember what I told you guys before about, if you've noticed over the past couple of years, they keep pushing things back to the states. This is why it's important to pay attention to local politics. Let's go on here as well. Republicans argue that they're trying to right-size the safety net programs for the population they were initially designed to serve, mainly pregnant women, the disabled, and children, and root out what they describe as waste, fraud, and abuse. But see, it's whatever they describe as waste, fraud, and abuse. Listen to this. The package includes new 80-hour-a-month work requirements for many adults receiving Medicaid and food stamps, including older people up to age 65. Parents of children 14 and older would have to meet the program's work requirements. There's also a proposed new $35 copay that can be charged to patients using Medicaid services. So let's talk about this for a second. There are a number of people that, when I worked in the skilled nursing facility, that they're only on Medicaid. They don't have any private funds left. They just have the Medicaid, and that's it. So not everybody has $35 for the copayment. This is what I'm trying to get across to people. Think about people that are on a fixed income. They're not getting extra money. And yeah, LA, you already figured it out. Yep, and red states will hurt more from this than blue states. Exactly. Because the rural areas are the ones that they're highly targeting. People better wake up. I told you tonight's theme of the show is snap out of it. People better snap out of it. This is not a joke. This is not a game. This is what they've always been wanting to do. Take from the poor and the lower income and give it to the rich. 80 million people rely on Medicaid. 40 million use SNAP. I'm going to get into the SNAP thing and how that's going to impact people as well. So listen to this part. The Senate proposes $25 billion rural hospital transformation program to help offset reduced Medicaid dollars. And it's a new addition intended to win over holdout GOP senators and a coalition of House Republicans, warning that the proposed Medicaid provider tax cuts would hurt rural hospitals. What did I tell you? They're trying to push all of this back to the states. Then it goes on to the Trump savings accounts. They're going to also, looks like they're going to implement a new excise tax on university endowments. This is basically a personal attack against Harvard. I'm just being honest with you. That's where this is coming from. So they're going to try to attack those Ivy League universities and give them like the excise tax, et cetera, where those universities before, when I worked at them, they were tax exempt. They're trying to change all of that. Now let's get into SNAP, because this is the part I think is going to have a big impact on low income communities and also Black communities, because you guys need to see this. SNAP benefits set to change in Trump's tax bill. So let's see what will happen here. Let's go down here. We make it a little bit. I want to make it a little bit bigger. Sorry about that. Okay, the reforms have been severely criticized by proponents of the program, also known as food stamps, which help 40 million Americans pay for groceries and monthly benefit allowances. Republicans have contended that the program's rules do not serve the truly needy and argue that overall spending on welfare programs should be reduced. Funding changes. So going into this year, under the approved Senate plan, states would be allowed to choose whether to use their payment error rates from fiscal year 2025 or 2026 to determine their cost-sharing responsibilities beginning in fiscal year 2028. From fiscal year 2029 onward, each state share would be calculated based on its average error rate over the previous 3 years. States that maintain payment error rates below 6% would not have to contribute to benefit costs. For those above that threshold, state contributions would be capped at a maximum of 15%. Alaska and Hawaii are exempt. So, once again, they are pushing policies back to the states. I don't know if everybody heard that. That was a loud thunder. Sorry about that. They're pushing these policies back to the states. So what that means is that if you live in a poor state, or if you live in a state that doesn't have, as much funding, you're not going to get as much. That's why I said this is going to seriously impact red states. Because it is the red states. If you look at the wealthiest states in the country, they're not red. So this part, we had to try to get across to people to get people to understand this bill is not in favor of working class people. They are robbing from the poor and the working class and giving to the rich. By the way, there's no cutoff or limitation for the tax benefits that they're giving to the wealthy. This is all to serve corporate interests, all to serve the military industrial complex, all to serve all this money they got for the Pentagon. They got money for the Golden Dome and everything, but they're taking SNAP benefits and they're doing it in a sneaky way because what they tell you is we're just going to push that back to the states. What they don't tell you is that if your state does not have a lot of funds, you are going to see cuts. So people need to snap out of it, and people need to wake up and see what's really happening here. Now, one person that apparently has woken up, not because they care about the people, is Elon Musk. Elon Musk is pissed that this bill was able to pass the Senate. And so he's gone on a rampage. You guys got to see this. Every member of Congress who campaigned on reducing government spending and then immediately voted for the biggest debt increase in history should hang their head in shame. And they will lose their primary next year if it is the last thing I do on this earth. Elon is very upset about this. Very upset. So much to the point that he is now saying that he will donate to Representative Thomas Massie, a Republican who has been excoriated by Trump. So for those of you who are not aware what's been going on here, Donald Trump is trying to primary Thomas Massie because Thomas Massie has been critical of Israel, doesn't want more funding to go to Israel, doesn't want the wars, doesn't take money from AIPAC. And so Donald Trump is saying that he's going to try to primary Thomas Massie. He's already got an attack ad out against him on social media. So he's trying to get him out of there, right? So Elon is now saying he's going to donate to Thomas Massie to spite Trump. Again, it doesn't mean Elon cares about people losing their health care. It doesn't mean that Elon cares about people losing SNAP benefits. Elon is just pissed at Trump because DOGE was supposed to cut and reduce spending. And then Donald Trump goes behind him and does this big, beautiful bill, which is basically more spending. And in all of it, neither one of them are explaining to you guys that this so-called debt ceiling is a myth to begin with. Neither one of them are telling the American people about modern monetary theory, that this debt ceiling is a myth. So they're both doing a disservice to the American people. But now Donald Trump is calling out Elon Musk because, again, he doesn't like this. He doesn't like that Elon doesn't want to kiss his ass. And that's basically what this has come down to. So listen to what he said about Elon and DOGE here.
Elon Musk is ripping into this bill again. Are you concerned that Republicans are going to be swayed by Musk and his money?
No, I don't think so. I think what's going to happen is DOGE is going to look at Musk. And if DOGE looks at Musk, we're going to save a fortune. Thank you very much, everybody. I don't think he should be playing that game with me.
You hear that? That's the threat. DOGE is going to take a look at Musk, and I don't think he should be playing that game with me. So you see how Donald Trump, again, the billionaire, is using his wealth and his privilege to call the shots and basically just say, hey, you get out of here too. Don't forget, Elon Musk has government contracts, right? So this other part here, he was also asked about deportation of Elon Musk. So here's the thing here. We'll get to the video. This is his statement on Truth Social. Elon Musk knew long before he so strongly endorsed me for president that I was strongly against the EV mandate. It is ridiculous and always a major part of my campaign. Electric cars are fine, but not everyone should be forced to own one. Elon may get more subsidy than any human being in history by far, and without subsidies, Elon would probably have to close up shop and head back home to South Africa. Uh-oh. Those sound like fighting words, right? Then he goes on to say, no more rocket launches, satellites, or electric car production, and our country would save a fortune. Perhaps we should have DOGE take a good, hard look at this. Big money to be saved. Now, a reporter is asking him about deporting Elon Musk. Check this out.
I don't know. I think we'll have to take a look. We might have to put DOGE on Elon. You know DOGE is? DOGE is the monster that might have to go back and eat Elon. Wouldn't that be terrible? He gets a lot of subsidies, Peter. But Elon's very upset that the EV mandate is going to be terminated. And you know what? When you look at it, not everybody wants an electric car. I don't want an electric car. I want to have maybe gasoline, maybe electric, maybe a hybrid. Maybe someday a hydrogen. If you have a hydrogen car, it has one problem. It blows up, So I'm going to give that one to Peter. To let Peter test it out.
Yeah. And Trump don't sound too good himself. Because when I heard this video, I was like, did he have a drink he drank? But then I don't think he drinks, right? So you're seeing what's happening here, folks. But do not allow yourself to be fooled. Right now, Chuck Schumer, he's giving all these speeches and these press conferences, and he's saying, look at what the Republicans just did to the American people. But what Chuck Schumer is not telling you is that the Democrats in the Senate could have actually stopped this bill. I warned you about this weeks ago. This is what they could do to stop it. And by the way, this information was relayed to Chuck Schumer. The person who wrote this article relayed this information to him. He is well aware that they could have done this strategy, but they decided not to. So you got the Democratic Party and the Republican Party playing games with your lives, with your livelihoods. And think about it this way, because like I said, the states that are going to be hit the hardest are the red states. They're the ones that are going to suffer the most from this because they don't have as much funds when you compare it to the blue states, right? So peep this game. Chuck Schumer and the Democrats are basically relying on this so that they can campaign on it for the midterms. And they can use it to run in 2028 and say, look what Trump took from you guys. But they'll never tell you what they could have done to stop it. So here's a reminder. Senate Democrats have been handed a tool to stop the big, beautiful bill. Thanks to a Republican vote to stop California from setting its own auto emissions, Democrat can challenge virtually any Trump administrative action and eat up time on the Senate floor. And I'll show you how they could have done that. So you see this? This article was written by David Dayen, May 28th of 2025. They knew ahead of time that there was another strategy that they could have used to try to block this bill. They didn't want to block it. We get into a little bit more here. Democrats could subject the Senate to time-consuming resolution votes to such a degree that the Senate would not have time to do anything else for the rest of the session in Congress. In other words, Democrats could respond to the waiver by paralyzing the Senate and stopping the giant Trump tax bill from ever reaching the floor. And the Democratic Party is never willing to use other tools. You know, you got those tools in your tool shed. And I go on there. If you want to see that full video where I go through that whole article, the name of that video is Senate Democrats Can Block Trump's Bill. They Refuse to Do It. It's on my channel. Pass this on to other people. Because, see, they playing games. And I really want people to just, again, wake up and snap out of it. They are playing games with your lives, with your family lives, with your friends' lives, all because of political agenda and trying to see who can hold on to power, when, and how. Oftentimes, there isn't a final no. Oftentimes, there are other tools and other strategies that can be used. They just don't tell you about it. Shout out to David for writing that article. So now this bill has made its way back to the House because the Senate revised the bill. And they really are trying to kick people off of Medicaid. And for all the people who live in red states, snap out of it because this is going to impact you the most. I'm not kidding. Now they got everybody divided. They got you pointing fingers at people who are like, oh, you're a socialist, you're a communist. They got you calling each other all kind of names and stuff like that. But they literally trying to take your health care. And at the end of the day, when that happens, if people lose their Medicaid, for the people to lose their Medicaid, for the people that lose their SNAP assistance, let me tell you what won't be on someone's mind when that happens. They're not going to be thinking about so-and-so's political ideology. They're going to be looking at the class issue. They're going to be looking at why is it that I'm struggling so much, but billionaire dude over there owns so much and exploits so many people. Why are they giving tax breaks to rich people and taking money from me? This is what people are going to start thinking about. And like I said, sometimes I often wonder if both of these parties behave in such a way to keep the other in power. What do I mean by that? I mean, just telling you what the Democrats could do to block this and they chose not to do it almost kind of feels like, I don't know, it's almost like they kind of want Donald Trump and the Republicans to be there so that they can campaign on it next time. And then sometimes I sit back and I think with the policies that Trump tries to pass or is passing, it's almost like he's trying to help the Democrats. It's almost like he's trying to create so much outrage so that the Democratic Party can still be seen as a viable party, the other party, because both maintain the status quo. What both of them don't want you to do is vote third party or vote independent. Knock on that wood. Something to think about because neither one of them are really benefiting the working class. And I got to be honest with you. Here's the thing. If the Democratic Party was a truly working class party, I feel like things would be different. If the Democratic Party didn't take corporate money, I feel like things would be different. But that's not the case. And that's how we got here. Let's go to some of the comments here, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for the super chats. Thank you. Mark says Sabby has a mini me. Thank you, Cougar Lady. The goal is more pressure on poor people will result in more crime, which will result in the need for more private prisons. White evil MFs. Zohran for mayor is the only small glimmer of hope. Thank you so much for the super sticker, Brian Snyder. I think Cougar Lady has a plan there, or has a point. Like, I really do feel like, and I'll get to this in a second, Baby Ethernet, I really do feel like they want chaos. Thank you, Baby Ethernet. Booker saved the sorry-ass 25-hour filibuster for dust. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, smash that like button if you can. And we're moving on to our next story. We're doing pretty good with time. What a weird story. I don't know if everyone heard about this. There was a shooter in Idaho who decided to just go guns blazing on firefighters. Really bizarre, random, wild. But was it random? Was there something in particular that maybe provoked the shooter? Maybe they had a motive and there was something behind that. Maybe it's all connected. Let's get into this story here. Again, very crazy. Police in Idaho say a gunman started a brush fire so he could ambush firefighters. Total setup. Check this out.
The breaking news is suspected sniper found dead, and now a massive investigation is really just getting underway after what the sheriff says started as an emergency response to a brush fire turned into an ambush on first responders in Idaho. 2 firefighters were killed. The sheriff says a third firefighter was also shot and is still fighting for his life. Calls into emergency dispatch in the midst of it paint a terrifying scene of the moments they realized that they were under attack.
Some law enforcement right now, there's an active shooter zone. They're shot. BC3's down, BC1's down. Everybody's shot up here. Law enforcement, code 3 now up here.
Okay, let's pause here for a second and we can look at what they were saying. So this was the dispatch audio in Idaho. So let me just make this very clear again. This gunman started a brush fire because obviously if you start a brush fire, you're going to have to someone's going to call 911 and the firefighters are going to show up. And the firefighters showed up and then he just went guns blazing on these firefighters. Now, we've heard some stories in time. We've heard people, having guns blazing at they've gone after police and there's usually a motive, right? We've had school shootings in this country, too many to count. But this was the first time I heard of someone going after firefighters. So I thought this was a little bit strange. But there's more to this story. Check this out.
Down. Everybody's shot up here. Law enforcement, code 3 now up here.
The ambush sparked a huge response from law enforcement. More than 300 officers from various agencies and neighboring counties were all called up to help. At one point, officers exchanged gunfire with the suspect, but it was more than 6 hours after that first fire call that his body was found. This morning, fire crews are still working to contain the fire that he allegedly started, still burning on Idaho's Canfield Mountain. CNN's Julia Vargas Jones is live in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho with the very latest. What are you learning?
Good morning, Kate. Well, the plan today from authorities is to go back to that location where the body of the shooter was found for further investigations. What are they looking for? They're looking for more weapons and more ammunition that gunman may or may not have had with him. Now, they had to remove the body from that location relatively quickly, they said last night in a press conference, because of the threat of that fire. So we have not learned any further details about who this gunman was or what were the weapons that he had with him. But we did hear from the sheriff of Kootenai County here in Coeur d'Alene talking about the very nature of this attack and what that was like for the firefighters that were responding on the scene.
This was a total ambush. These firefighters did not have a chance. When you have an environment where you don't know where the bullets are coming from because of the trees and the shrubbery and what have you, it is daunting for police officers, let alone firefighters who are there just to put out the fire.
So they didn't even know where the shots were coming from. So that's another part, right? Now, I've never seen Idaho in the news before, so I was kind of shocked by this story. I was like, this happened where? Don't know much about it. Only thing I know about Idaho is that there's potatoes, right? So they grow potatoes. I know about that. But just very interesting. You guys keep seeing these escalation of these lone gunman stories or these type of attacks that are happening since 2025 started. You guys notice that there seems to be an increase since 2025 started. And again, it makes you wonder what is happening, right? This is why when people say that America is not a violent country, or they say this is not who we are, this is why I disagree with that. That is exactly what America is. America is a violent country. Hell, has been violent as long as I can remember. So I don't know why people sound surprised when they say, oh my God, I can't believe this would happen and such. This is a violent country. Now, there's, again, like I said, there's a little bit more to the story that we're going to get into in just a second. Check this out.
Unimaginable, Kate, what these firefighters went through. And now this community is also left with so many questions as the investigation continues in the coming days. Now, I do want to share with you one interesting detail is that authorities did use his cell phone, the shooter's cell phone, to ping his location. And as you mentioned, they had exchanged fire with him, but that for another 90 minutes is how they tried to triangulate him until he eventually was neutralized. We don't know how he died at this time, but that fire in that location continues to burn. It is now called the Nettleton Gulch Fire, and authorities will be going up today as daylight breaks here.
So I just want to jump in and I want to say something. When I first heard about this story the other day, I thought to myself, I hope this doesn't make firefighters afraid now. I hope firefighters because a lot of times there are firefighters that are volunteers. We have firefighters here in Massachusetts that they're not paid. They're volunteers. And it just makes you wonder, like, if they heard the story, are they going to be somewhat fearful? Because, again, like I said, why would you go after firefighters? Well, this could be part of the reason. I think you guys need to see this. Check this out. Suspected Idaho shooter showed Nazi tendencies in school. Ex-classmates say. So check this out, and then we're going to connect this to another story, and this could be part of the reason. But I think you guys need to know about what was happening apparently in this area of Idaho. So it says the man accused of fatally shooting 2 firefighters in an ambush in rural Idaho on Sunday had Nazi tendencies in school. Sketched pictures of guns and swastikas in a notebook and was obsessed with guns, 3 former classmates told USA Today. At a news conference Monday afternoon, Kootenai County Sheriff Bob Norris identified the suspected gunman as West Raleigh, 20 years old. The discovery of Raleigh's body on Canfield Mountain, a popular hiking destination outside of the city of Coeur d'Alene, culminated 6 hours of chaos that saw about 300 local, state, and federal officers flock to the area. It appears Raleigh took his own life. Kootenai County Fire and Rescue Chief Frank Harwood and Coeur d'Alene Fire Department Battalion Chief John Morrison were identified by officials on Monday as the fallen firefighters. Officials also identified the injured firefighter as Coeur d'Alene Fire Department Dave Tisdall. Authorities in Idaho were trying to determine the motive behind the deadly shooting. Lost my place, sorry. Oh, here we go. The motive behind the deadly shooting. Harry Stanley, who told USA Today that he attended school with Raleigh, said he and his friends were upset by Sunday's attack in the mountains of Idaho. None of us have had any contact with him for years. I'm just really sad about what happened. So, yeah. So again, goes on to say here, this is coming from Harry, who attended middle school and high school with Raleigh. He said, my good friend saw drawings of swastikas and guns in his notebook. We were all pretty scared of him. Dieter Denon, who attended elementary, middle, and high school with him, also remembered the swastika drawing incident. Denon said he always thought Raleigh's comments and activity were just the actions of a kid being edgy. We all thought that he was just messing around, that was his way of trying to stand out. Stanley said he remembers Raleigh left high school in the middle of sophomore year. He said he believes Raleigh was expelled after some trouble with a girl. Raleigh came to school one day with a buzz cut and said he wanted to join ROTC. He described his former classmate as a funny guy, but with few close friends. Everybody just thought he was weird. He was also obsessed with guns. So here's something that was kind of strange. There was another incident. Let me make this a little bit larger. First and foremost, I didn't even know that Idaho had like a lot of white supremacists there like that, but apparently, yeah, it does. And there was another incident that happened approximately 24 years ago, the same day that he shot and killed those firefighters. Check this out. After firefighter ambush, Idaho commissioner rejects focus on white nationalism. So see, the firefighter commissioner doesn't want to focus on that. Says, no. Let's not focus. So check this out. The motive for the attack, which occurred at Canfield Mountain Recreation Area near Coeur d'Alene, remains unknown. But some national media outlets speculated that it could be connected with white nationalist anti-government sentiment in a part of the state that has been a hotbed of such ideology. Jim Kavanaugh, a retired special agent with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, he relayed this message to MSNBC. So I think that's kind of important for people to know. That part right there. Wait for it, though. Check this out. Peep this. It's just a historical fact that there's been some anti-government sentiment heavy in that area, leading towards white supremacy. Kavanaugh added, that doesn't mean that this case is tied to that. This could be anything at all. So I don't know why, but I think it wants me to subscribe right now, and I'm not going to do that. So I was able to view this earlier. Let's see if it'll let me come back in without subscribing, because I read it before and okay. So I'll pull it up somewhere else. I'll pull up the other one because I think you guys need to see this. This is important. The case that they tied it to before. Okay. Let's see if we can come in here. Okay, check this out. So we are going to share it from here because I think people need to hear this part. Can everybody see it okay? I'll make it bigger. All right. Peep this, fam. He told the Idaho Statesman to that area's history as the home of the Aryan Nations, a neo-Nazi group. In the 1970s, the group's founder, Richard Butler, created a compound near Hayden Lake. Now, this is outside of Coeur d'Alene. Now, that area drew neo-Nazis and white supremacists for conferences and training. Let's continue to go on a little bit more. The group created anti-Semitic graffiti and escalated to violent attacks. Tony Stewart, one of the founders of the Katuni County Task Force on Human Relations, previously told the Statesman, one of its offshoots, called the Order, placed a homemade bomb under the kitchen of Boise's congregation, the Ahavath Israel Synagogue, hijacked an armored truck, and murdered a radio show host. But those days are long past. So I thought it was important that people hear this part of the story. And it goes on to say here that Coeur d'Alene human rights activists, with the help of Southern Poverty Law Center, bankrupted and ousted the Aryan Nations from its Hayden Lake compound in 2001. But echoes of similar ideology have remained. In 2022, white supremacists rallied at Hayden Lake. Later that year, 31 members of the white supremacist Patriot Front group were arrested on suspicion of conspiring to riot at an LGBTQ plus pride event. Huh? Okay, let's go on a little bit more. After the arrest, then Coeur d'Alene Mayor Jim Hammond said, "We're not going back to the days of the Aryan nations. We are past that. We were able to completely rid ourselves of that group and the kind of awful culture that they were trained to present to our community." But it goes on to say here, longstanding Cottonee County residents recall a time when white supremacists marched openly down the street, said Mater, who moved to the area in 2013. They were very visible. These days, he said, if it exists in their basement or in their minds. So I do think it is important that this part of the story is brought up, considering that they said that, the classmates said that he was drawing swastikas and that type of stuff. I do think it's important for people to have more parts of this because it could be connected. Now, we don't know for sure, but that is something I think that people should be well aware of. That fire, that particular area, that Hayden area I was just talking about, there was an event there, which I was trying to show you on that article, but these stupid people want to paywall everything. Sorry. There was another thing that was mentioned, that there was an incident before, approximately 24 years ago, from the same day that he fired at those officers, where one of the, I guess, outposts or whatever, one of the homes, the cabins for like the Aryan organization was burned to the ground. So some people said there could be some connection to that. I don't know, but I will say this. It's very strange that someone would just decide to do that to firefighters. And not only that, the fact that he intentionally set a fire to lure them to come out so that he could kill them. It's crazy things, you guys. Crazy things that are happening. But it makes you wonder, huh? Let's go to some of the comments here. VMPOR says, remember what Democrats did when India Walton, socialist, won? They going by the same playbook again. There you go there. Thank you, Brian. Sabby on Obama. He don't believe that shit. DNC. You remember that? Miranda Rios, shout out to you for being a member for 5 months. Thank you. LPA Film says, don't forget the Idaho campus murders. And thank you, Duckzilla. Not surprised by the Idaho story. The state is in the Northwest version of Texas, but arguably even more nuts and right wing. And Derek said, Idaho is the headquarters of the white supremacist movement. So there you go. See, the fire chief don't want to talk about that, but no, fire chief, we're going to have to talk about that. So I don't know, you guys, crazy things. All right, ladies and gentlemen, smash the like if you haven't done so. Thank you. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share, just like a Care Bear. And we are moving on to our next story, ladies and gents. Ladies and gents. Okie dokie doke. Let's go ahead and get into this one. There was a festival in the UK called the Glastonbury Festival. So a music festival, I love festivals. I get down with that jam. And one of the music acts, which is called Bob Vylan, it's a duo. They not only got up there to perform, but they also gave solidarity for Gaza. They said, free Palestine. And apparently, they also went on to say, they said, death to the IDF. And that apparently has caused a firestorm of things, because apparently, when you say something matters more than if you actually do something. Isn't that interesting? How we've sat there and we've watched the IDF just kill children, Just blatantly as day. Just target civilians. How we've heard Netanyahu and all these other people say these things about Palestinians and actually do it, right? But apparently, if you say something against the military in Israel, you are now a target where they are coming after Bobby Vylan. You got to see it for yourself. It's all playing out in real time. Check it out.
Developing in the UK, a criminal investigation is underway after controversial performances at the Glastonbury Festival in England. Police are reviewing comments by acts Bob Vylan and Kneecap to see if laws were broken. Bob Vylan's lead singer chanted "Free Palestine" and "Death to the IDF" during a live BBC broadcast, sparking controversy.
It's actually vital that artists are free to speak their mind and speak their feelings.
Well, I thought it was appalling, to be honest. And I think the BBC and Glastonbury have got questions to answer about how we saw such a spectacle on our screens.
Glastonbury organizers have condemned the remarks, and the BBC is now reviewing its live event policies.
So let's pause here. So there have been criticism towards the BBC where people are saying that they should have stopped the production. They should have cut it right then and there. But I want to say something, okay? As someone who enjoys going to music festivals, like I love music festivals, for the rest of you, for you uptight mofos, stay your ass at home, okay? Stay home. Don't come to the music festivals and ruin it for everybody else, okay? And what's really interesting to me, some of the people who are criticizing Bob Vylan, some of these people, older people now today, some of you guys went to Woodstock, so shut up. Be quiet. Be quiet. Just stop it. No. You guys always got to ruin it for everybody, right? 2, the IDF is the military. Now, see, what I see very funny here, okay? There's a number of people who say, well, sure, it's okay for you to criticize the Israeli government. It's okay for you to criticize the IDF. But then people do that and it's like, no, it's not okay for you to do that. It's okay for the US government. It's okay for other militaries to say this about other country militaries. It's okay for them to say that. But the moment that you say it about Israel's military, now that's crossing the line. We have watched these people slaughter children for over a year. There's even videos right now on social media where you see them targeting lone civilians walking back by themselves just from getting aid, and you see them single them out and target them. These people aren't a threat. The IDF soldiers, we talked about it on here the other day with Nico House. When we were reading the report, the IDF soldiers admitted that they were ordered to kill everybody who was coming to get aid. Now, but people they got their panties in a bunch over this guy, this musician, this duo who was performing at a music festival, which most of you probably would have never heard of any goddamn way. They want you to be more upset about that. They want you to be more upset about rhetoric and words than they do about the actions. This is insane to me. And so many things have happened to that duo since then. Like the level of retaliation is absolutely insane when you see what they're doing to them now. And I care a lot about this subject because I got to say this. I believe that artists should have free speech. I believe that people should have free speech. I believe that musicians and comedians and all these people shouldn't have to worry about what they're saying when they're performing. And I didn't always used to feel that way. But over time, I have grown. People should have freedom to do this. Excuse me, should have freedom to do this. And I get very concerned when people try to come in and police these musicians, these artists, etc. I take offense to that. Like I said, next time, BBC, stay your ass home. Stay your ass home. Go cover the royal family. Aren't you good at that? Let's go on a little bit more.
Additionally, Bob Vylan has been dropped by their agency, UTA, after their American visas were revoked ahead of their concerts in the fall, including a scheduled performance here in L.A. Deputy U.S. Secretary of State Christopher Landau said foreigners who glorify violence and hatred are not welcome in our country. On Instagram, Bob Vylan shared that the band has received messages of both support and hatred, adding, quote, Teaching our children to speak up for the change they want and need is the only way that we make this world a better place.
And you look at this duo, and if you listen to some of their music, it reminds me of some of the things that, some of the music and stuff we listen to, like in undergrad and stuff like that. Like a lot of younger people, they really like this group. They really like them, right? And so I'm sorry. Are we supposed to sit up here and just say, okay, well, the IDF did some bad things, but let's pray for them? Hell's no. And I'll tell you, this is another thing too. And for those of you who are Christian, or if you grew up in the church, I grew up in the church, I'm going to keep something very real, because I don't believe you got to pray for everybody. I don't believe that. I believe some people who are just evil, who are vindictive, who like to just destroy entire populations of people, I don't believe you should have to pray for those people at all. Well, what are you supposed to do? I mean, what else should they say? What should they say? We watch these same IDF members make TikTok videos making fun of the death of Palestinian children for over a year. We watched them say death to the Palestinian people for over a year, for years. It was okay for them to say that, but you can't have that same critique towards the military in Israel? You got to be kidding me. Get out of here. This is the problem with the whole supremacy ideology. They're not supposed to be touched. You can't criticize them. You can't critique. You can't have anything negative to say about them. And fuck that. And what we really need, and I pass this on, more Christians need to stand up to this. More Christians need to be saying something. Because some of you say you really know the Bible, then you know that the Israel of today is not the Israel that's mentioned in the Bible, right? You know that the Israel in the Bible is not an actual physical place. So more Christians need to start standing up and pushing up back on that. Period. We're going to teach the people over here.
New tonight, a surprise at the NHL draft at the Peacock Theater in downtown LA.
Okay, so we'll get into a little bit more here about Bobby Vylan, right? Because they are now launching an investigation into this group, also and Kneecap. Now, if I remember correctly, and again, as a concert goer myself, when it comes to music festivals, these large music festivals, these acts are booked early on. So if they were concerned about Bobby Vylan or what they may or may not say, Bobby Vylan already had videos out from years prior explaining exactly how he felt about Israel and about what was happening to the Palestinian people. So it just, to me, they know who these people are. They know who these people are. These acts are not booked last minute. When you have a music festival, these people are booked months in advance. So let's go on here so you can see. Criminal investigation has been launched. The force said it had appointed a senior detective to investigate whether the comments that were made by Bobby Vylan or Kneecap amounted to a criminal offense after reviewing the footage. This has been recorded as a public order incident at this time while our inquiries are at an early stage. Speaking in the parliament on Monday after the announcement, Culture Secretary Lisa Nandy called the scene's broadcast appalling and unacceptable. Police have not been specified which part of Bob Vylan's or Kneecap set would be subject to a criminal investigation. It comes after the BBC said it should have cut away from a live broadcast of Bob Vylan's performance, during which the band's singer, Pascal Robinson Foster, who performs under the name Bobby Vylan, led a chant of death, death to the IDF. Those comments drew criticism of both the English punk rap duo and the BBC for its live coverage of their performance. The corporation said it would look at our guidance around live events so we can be sure teams are clear on when it is acceptable to keep output on air, and labeled remarks made during the performance anti-Semitic. So here we go. Everything is... So again, you can't criticize the Israel military? You can't criticize the Israel's military? Fletcher says Israel has permanently lost the narrative war. They will not survive this. Yeah, isn't this crazy? You punks, you coming after musicians now? Hey, you really want to piss off young people. You don't come after their musicians. Like honestly. So Israel has become that kid on the playground no one wants to be around, okay? Israel has become the kid on the playground that has the runny nose that never wipes their nose. They're the kid on the playground that eats crayons. They're the kid on the playground that sniffs glue. Nobody wants to be around you anymore. Y'all got too much drama. You got too much baggage. You're creeping people out. And you're genocidal. It goes on to say here, when the rights and the safety of the people and communities are at risk, and when the national broadcaster fails to uphold its own standards, we will intervene. She added and said she will continue to speak to the BBC in the coming days. So again, like I said, you can't criticize the actual military. And just to show you what I was talking about, this is from 2023, a performance by Bobby Vylan here, a little speech here in 2023. 2023. This isn't new. So I don't know why they're pretending like they ain't know who Bobby was. Check this out.
News. It's not just local, it is world fucking news, and we are watching fucking babies being burned. We are watching babies, fucking children, being pulled from the rubble of fucking buildings that have been absolutely leveled after spending days under that. How the fuck can you call yourself a political left-wing band if you are not fucking speaking up for people that have no voice at the moment? It's a cowardly fucking thing. So fuck idols, fuck Sleaford mods, and fuck every single one of those fucking apolitical bands that don't want to fucking speak up when it's something a little bit iffy, a little bit touchy, a little bit sensitive, and you've got a fucking bullshit album to sell. Fuck that.
So do you see? This was 2023. This was Bobby Vylan, and he was actually criticizing the other artists that didn't want to say anything. So again, like I said, stop acting like you didn't know who this guy was, okay, man? You guys stop acting like BBC, you guys try to be all prim and proper or whatever. Stop it. Glenn Greenwald, great take here. Anyone who tries to pretend that death to the IDF means kill all Jews is either brazenly insulting your intelligence or is just dumb. Every day, I hear people celebrating the deaths of soldiers at war. Russians, Iranians, Ukrainians, etc. Israelis chant death to Arabs. See what I mean? We know, Glenn, we know. See? Glenn knows. He sees it. But you even got, this is the anti-Semitism czar that Donald Trump appointed. Leo ass-kissing dude. Leo who will do anything for fame. Clint Russell said, replace anti-Semitism with hate speech and you'll quickly realize that we didn't move on from wokeness. We just put a red hat on it. Listen to this guy. Listen to him. He's like, oh, we got to go after this guy. We got to take him down.
All his managers effing Zionists. This is a person who is calling for basically the destruction of Israel and Jewish Americans. The Trump administration is not going to allow anti-Semitism to exist in this country. And as head of the Department of Justice task force, I can guarantee you, Martha, and the American people, we're going to eliminate anti-Semitic conduct. We got marching orders from Pam Bondi, Harmeet Dillon, and President Trump. And that's why I'm here today. I'm telling you that anti-Semitism is not going to happen. And people who want to come in this country on a visa will not be allowed to enter this country if they have anti-Semitic mindset with the intention to incite violence. I want to thank the Secretary of State Department for moving so fast on this because we were on this over the weekend, Martha, and we sent that letter immediately to the Secretary of State's office this morning at 8 o'clock.
Well, whoop-de-doo for you, Leo, for doing your damn job. Do you want a cookie too? Should we give you a trophy because you were doing your job? I don't see people have this same type of passion when we have actual hate crimes committed against Black people here in this country. Do you guys know in the past couple of weeks, there have been multiple Black men that have been found hanging from trees? You know that? Where's that same type of passion? From Leo, who used to be a civil rights lawyer that decided he could make more money if he went on the MAGA team. Where's that same type of passion? Where's that type of passion and energy from Pam Bondi? Where's that type of passion and energy from Donald Trump? Where's that type of passion and energy from Kirsten Gillibrand, from Chuck Schumer? And we don't mean to show up and put on kente cloth, okay? We don't need that. No. And I've said it before. If you look at the numbers, Black people in this country are targeted heavily for hate crimes. But you don't see nobody getting all excited and passionate about trying to protect us, though. I don't see anybody, any of these people at Fox News, CNN, all of you guys, when it comes to corporate media, I don't see any of these corporate networks getting so passionate and fired up about protecting Black people. I'm willing to go to the bat in the battle to help Black people and to stop this in this country. You don't see it. Because they're not paid to do it. They're not paid to do it. You see, there's no PAC to protect Black people, which really means they just don't give a shit. They do what they're paid to do. That's it. And this message from Leo is just acting. He's acting. A lot of these people, look, if this gig don't work out, a lot of these people can go work in Hollywood. Tell them I sent you. To go along with this, he was dropped. Bobby Vylan was dropped from his talent agency, which may sound familiar to some of you, United Talent Agency. Check this out.
Well, let's return to that breaking news that Sky News understands the rap duo Bob Vylan has been dropped by the United Talent Agency. It comes after the BBC expressed regret at not pulling the live stream of the rap duo's performance during the Glastonbury Festival. The corporation said anti-Semitic sentiments expressed by the group were utterly unacceptable.
Oh, and if United Talent Agency, if that sounds familiar to you, it's probably because you remember when they dropped Susan Sarandon because she was pro-Palestine, right? So they're trying to say it's anti-Semitic rhetoric, but Susan Sarandon didn't have anti-Semitic rhetoric. Just a reminder, UTA dropped Susan Sarandon after comments at pro-Palestine rally in New York. Just a reminder, fams. Okay? So there's Susan Sarandon. All right? And so she said some things. There are a lot of people that are afraid of being Jewish at this time and are getting a taste of what it feels like to be Muslim in this country, so often subjected to violence. United Talent Agency had a problem with that and said she got to go. And that is because United Talent Agency is a Zionist company. Knock. How many of you knew that? United Talent Agency is a Zionist company. Ain't the only one, but it is. So you see how that works. I think that Bobby Vylan is going to be even more popular after this. Even more popular. And now, to make matters even worse, they are denying his visa. Bobby Vylan has had his visa revoked, all because of the words that he said on the stage. Now, let me ask you a question. You can't criticize the Israeli military, but at the same time, why is your visa being denied for you to come, or being revoked for you to be able to come to the United States when the IDF exists in Israel, not in the United States? He didn't say this about the U.S. military. So why is the State Department so like, no, we blocked your visa. You are not allowed to come back to the United States of America, even though the IDF is not the U.S. military, unless you believe like I do, which is that Israel is just another damn military base. A military base full of European settlers cosplaying. Listen to what the State Department said.
On Glastonbury, just getting to the decision to revoke the visas, members of this administration, particularly the vice president, have been very vocal about free expression, saying that even if things are hateful, particularly the vice president took to task Germany and to a certain extent the UK, saying that there are laws that prohibit hateful content and insults, that those are inappropriate. What's the difference here? I mean, I'm not justifying, I'm not supporting the Bob Vylan as a ban, but why is it that this speech is out of line while you have there's at the same time a push to not to outlaw free expression elsewhere when it comes to?
I'm also wondering too, what was he thinking when he got up that morning and he picked out that tie to go with that shirt? But I digress.
Expression elsewhere when it comes to insults.
Right. I think that, again, this is not about the nature of a concert, I suppose, but it really is about our standards, about who we let in the country. That we're not telling people what they can sing about or what they can say. It's not involved here at all. They obviously felt free to say what they were saying and chanting at Glastonbury, and they can do that. And we can do what we do. So it really is about the issue of national security, about issues of violence, the increase certainly of anti-Semitism, but of terrorism in general.
If it's about violence, if it's about all of that and security, why is Benjamin Netanyahu allowed to come here? He'll be back here again on Monday, by the way. Why is Benjamin Netanyahu allowed to come here if that's what this is really about? Why are those racist ass Israelis allowed to come here if it's about security and violence and all this type of stuff, right? Absolutely insane.
That dynamic, the crime in the United States, what happened with the open border, the transnational gangs that are here, this kind of wanton dynamic that has ruined American lives, that has created cities that are unlivable, and every American deserves better. They deserve to know they have leadership, as we do now. And that's why they voted for Donald Trump, was simple, basic law and order, respect for your neighbor, and if you're coming to this country, respect for the people who are here.
Again, but the IDF isn't here. Not even here. Absolutely insane. So, like I said, Bobby Vylan is going to become much more popular because of all this. Because people are really, they're snapping out of it. People have woken up. Like I said, Israel is that kid on a playground that nobody wants to be around because you suspect as hell. You didn't want to be around the kid whose nose was always running and they didn't wipe it because you didn't want them to touch their nose and put their hand on you. It's things like that. We don't want your cooties. We don't want them to spread that type of energy around the rest of us. You keep your genocidal behavior over there. And by the way, for any of the black people who make it excuses for Israel, you know what you look like, right? We can't say the word on here, but you know exactly what you look like. Let's go to some of the comments here in the chat. Thank you, Kyle. And thank you for being a member for 4 months. I became a Bob Vylan fan on Saturday because of his words. Free Palestine. You see what's happening? Bob, you getting some more fans. Thank you, Mishu. The U.S. military not far behind the IDF. If the words of Kurt Metzger, F you for your service. Oh, in the words of Kurt Metzger, F you for your service. Thank you, Barefoot. You go, Sabby. Thank you. Thank you, Jamie. LOL, that crayon joke was good. But in seriousness, I can't stand this assault on free speech to defend psychopaths. Exactly. Shout out to Jasmine's been a member for 19 months. Thank you, Walter Beasley. What's up? Says, agree with you. And Warren, my wife was targeted by Zionist orgs and their media outlets for speaking up. They pressured her employer to fire her, and we thought we were going to lose our house for 48 hours. See, these people are insane. I'm so sorry to hear that, Warren. I hope everything's better now. Thank you, Kareem. Zio feelings matter more than Pally life to them. Yeah, thank you, Pink Diamond. M. Elkerd's book touches on the topic of semantic violence perceived worse than literal violence. A drone is one thing, but a trope is unacceptable. Interesting. Thank you so much for that, Pink Diamond. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have one more story for you. Before we get to it, just a reminder about the documentary. I am filming a documentary, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully, we'll be done by the end of this month. Hopefully, but we're doing pretty good. We're making good time. The documentary I'm filming is called Removed. I still have to figure out the second line for it, but it's called Removed. Check it out. I am making a documentary titled Removed about gentrification in Boston. Eric and Corey have gathered great footage so far. We are now working with a professional editor, and he's doing a great job, but we need help with funds. If you can help donate, please help us, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. This is to pay the editor. Like I said, he's been doing a really good job. Our goal was 10,000. I think we started with a goal of 5,000, but yeah, our goal was 10,000. So I'll share the link here if you can. Again, this is about gentrification in Boston, and I think you guys are going to like it. Like so far, like what he's put together, I think you guys are going to like it. I'll be sure to pin that link. Like people keep telling me pin that link at the end of the video. So I'll be sure to pin that as well. Okay, we're going on to another story. We're going to do, this one requires a little bit of a deep dive. Yeah, it does. All right. If you haven't done so, folks, please be sure to smash that like button. Thank you very much. Okie dokie. One thing that I really like about Dave Chappelle is that Dave Chappelle really does not give a damn what anyone thinks about him. And sometimes that can be a scary thing. And sometimes it can be, you know, an empowerment thing. But he really doesn't. He just does not give a damn. And he especially didn't give a damn when he made these comments about DJ Khaled. Because you see, many of us that have been talking about Israel and Gaza and the West Bank, we've noticed that a very well-known, famous Palestinian American named DJ Khaled has been very silent. Very silent, folks. And now someone in the entertainment industry is calling him out for it. Now, people need to remember Dave Chappelle is Muslim. So for Dave Chappelle, as a Muslim, he may kind of look at this like, really? You're not going to say anything? Think about it that way. Let's get into it. And I'll explain to you why he's so silent. We're going to get into the nitty-gritty of that, guys. Okay? So Dave Chappelle. Dave Chappelle roasts Trump, Israel-Iran conflict, and DJ Khaled silence. Ooh. Let's go on. Traveling to the Gulf days after a ceasefire went into effect, the American comedian made light of the president's unpredictability during his performance at a sold-out Etihad Arena in Abu Dhabi. So he was at Abu Dhabi's comedy season. Trump, I don't know about this guy. I can't tell if he's going to do good or not. What a week you guys must have had over here in the Middle East. The 51-year-old entertainer also brought up the president's Saturday Truth Social post announcing airstrikes on 3 Iranian nuclear facilities. Trump wrote that we did a meticulously perfect attack. We have disabled their nuclear facility. And then at the end of the post, he said, now is the time for peace. Word? I don't think that's how this works, champ. Of course, you guys know Chappelle can do this better than me. So just keep that in mind. But this part right here, I think is very telling. Like he also talked about Pete Hegseth. And here's an image of him here. He said that Trump bombed Iran in an attack that was carefully planned on WhatsApp. So I think Chappelle is hilarious as hell. But this is where it comes to DJ Khaled. When an audience member yelled out the name of Palestinian American musician DJ Khaled, the comedian questioned why the DJ has remained silent over the war in Gaza. DJ Khaled, let me tell you something. For a Palestinian, this man is awfully quiet right now. And as a Palestinian, how could you be that quiet right now? And why are you so fat? People are starving. He's the only fat Palestinian on earth right now. Dave Chappelle joked. The comedian has been outspoken about the suffering of Palestinians since the Israel-Gaza war began. Last year, during his show in Abu Dhabi, he described Israel's actions as a genocide. And that was 2 cheers of the audience. So Dave Chappelle is calling out DJ Khaled, which, like I said, more people, in particular in the music industry, should be doing that. But there's a reason why they're not. And there's a reason why DJ Khaled is so silent. So first and foremost, there was another opportunity where DJ Khaled could have said something. And this was when Sneeko showed up at an event. It says Fest New York. It says even Sneeko tried to get DJ Khaled to say free Palestine, but he ignored him and stayed silent. Check this out. You guys get to see it in real time.
Is that DJ Khaled? Hold on. That's DJ Khaled right there. Hold on.
DJ's my boy, I'll introduce you.
Hey, you fucking Palestine? Tell him free Palestine. Free Palestine, DJ Khaled. Free Palestine. Free Palestine. Free Palestine. He didn't say it. He didn't say it.
No, he did not say it. So it's not as though people haven't asked him, right? And by the way, I'm not really a fan of Sneeko either, because he can be that way for one group, but then he can also be really racist towards other groups. Here was another time. DJ Khaled. DJ Khaled is a joke. Israel has been carpet bombing his country and burning Palestinians alive for 15 months straight, and he couldn't even utter a word about Palestine. It's disgusting. They're referring to this post here from DJ Khaled. Remember when the fires broke out in LA? DJ Khaled posted sending prayers to everyone in LA. But not in Gaza? West Bank? No? But you can send prayers to everyone in LA? Word? But there is a reason. You see, shout out to Mint Press News because they broke this down quite so long ago. They called for a moment of silence for DJ Khaled. You know? The secret to DJ Khaled's silence on Palestine. And this is the guy that you hear on multiple songs, you know, especially at the beginning. DJ Khaled, we're the best. We're taking over. That DJ Khaled, right? A vocal person. He's not like one of those producers that's, you know, hidden. He's very vocal and lively. But let's see who DJ Khaled has ties to. Let's move on, ladies and gents. DJ Khaled's label, We the Best, is a subsidiary of Universal Music Group, right? So this is what I said before when I was talking about some of these labels. See, you really do have to follow the money because it's easy to say Diddy owns Bad Boy. That's a label. It's easy to say DJ Khaled owns, you know, We the Best. That's a label. But oftentimes, these people don't own the actual company. Just like when we went through the whole, you know, Diddy Epstein article that Whitney Webb wrote, Whitney Webb laid it out so perfectly so that people can really see that even though Diddy owned Bad Boy, he wasn't in the position of power. He didn't own Arista Records. He didn't own MCA. You see what I'm saying? So follow that. Follow that, ladies and gentlemen. Now, why is this a problem? You know, I mean, what is the issue with it being a part of UMG, Universal Music Group? Well, let's break it down. Here we go. Who owns it? Always ask yourself who owns it. The CEO of Universal Music Group is Lucian Grange. Lucian Grange is a supporter of the Friends of the IDF charity. You see this? See what I mean? And most of the time, you don't see the owners. You don't see who owns these companies. So that's one of them. There's more. Let's go on a little bit more. Caroline Grange, the wife of Universal Music Group CEO, funds the Zionist Federation and other Israel lobby groups. You don't say. That's the wife. Another director of Universal Music Group is Haim Sabin, the largest fundraiser for the Friends of the IDF in history. All these people connected. Check this out. Haim Sabin is also credited with writing the script for U.S. President Joe Biden's policy on Israel. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you tell me something. Why is a music executive writing foreign policy for the president of the United States? Don't you think that's a little strange? They're all controlled by big business and big money. So let's follow those dots, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go back. Let's follow the dots. You see how all these people are connected? And see who DJ Khaled is connected to? So you got Lucian Grange. I want you to remember the names as we go into the next part. Caroline Grange, the wife, and Haim Sabin. Now let's go to the next part. Because now we're going to go to other parts of the family. Lucian Grange has a son. Lucian Grange's son is the CEO of Atlantic Music. Say what? Yeah, because you see, this is all connected. The rise of Elliot Grange, a brief career timeline of Atlantic Music Group's incoming CEO. So at the time, it said, tracing the rapid ascent of a 30-year-old record executive and the son of UMG's Lucian Grange, from his early entrepreneurial ventures to his industry-shaking new role. So this is Lucian's son. Lucian's son, he has taken over the lead of Atlantic Music Group. So he's the CEO of Atlantic Music Group. So, anywho, I want people to see this, I don't know, this tree, so to speak. Okay? Because we're looking at DJ Khaled and we're asking him, why are you so silent? And if you see who DJ Khaled really works for, because he does have a boss. And a lot of times people don't follow this pattern. They don't follow the chain. They just see, well, DJ Khaled owns his own label. Yeah, but he worked for somebody. Just like Diddy worked for Clive Davis. Just because you own the label don't mean you own the company the label is under. So we connect these dots, right? So he got a son. All these people are connected. Now check this out. Mondaweiss reported this. Shout out to Mondaweiss. They've been excellent on this as well. Biden's Israel policy is scripted by Sabin. What did I tell you? So we're going back to Sabin now, Ham Sabin. See, they covered this. Biden will meet with Netanyahu at the UN and do nothing to pressure his racist right-wing government because he needs mega donor Haim Sabin for 2024. And Sabin says, I'm a one-issue guy and my issue is Israel. Again, Why is a music executive telling the president of the United States what to do for foreign policy? This is why I continue to say, until you get corporate money out of electoral politics, these things aren't going to change. These people are controlled. More people need to be talking about this. So, again, with Haim, every now and then the Democratic Party megadona Haim Sabin surfaces and makes refreshing remarks to the press. I'm a one issue guy, and my issue is Israel. Now, let me pause here for a second, ladies and gentlemen, because I want to prove a point. There are a number of times you will hear voters say, I'm a one issue voter, right? You've heard Black voters say, and even on this show, that their single issue is reparations or their single issue is a Black agenda. But now when they say those things, they're called divisive. But here you have a mega donor who makes it very clear that he is a one issue voter and his issue is Israel. And this is what I want everybody to wake up to. Why is it okay for people to have their one issue be Israel, but it's not okay for other groups to have a one issue? You following what I'm saying? Okay, we got to point this out. He popped up 10 days ago. He gave an interview to an Israeli newspaper, and he said he was invited to lunch with the Biden White House in early September, and the meeting was supposed to last an hour, but it lasted 3 hours. He justifies giving money to AIPAC, which supports Republican election deniers, because his one issue is Israel. So you see this? The only goal of this organization is to prevent people who are against U.S.-Israel relations from advancing and to support those who support relations between Jerusalem and Washington. Did everybody hear what he just said? He wants to prevent people who don't support Israel from advancing. Again, a music executive. So if he's saying this to the president of the United States at that time, what the hell was he saying to people like DJ Khaled? What was he saying to people in the music industry? Goes on to say here, Democrats called me and said, are you stupid? You're a Democrat who supports 2020 election deniers. I always say the same thing. It's a specific defined issue, and that is the U.S.-Israel relationship. In that sense, I'm not interested in anything else. Everybody, okay, so once again, for all the people in the chat who push back when people say they are interested in that one issue and that's it, and people push back on them and they call them divisive, I'm going to say this one more time. One particular lobby group has tremendous power in this country, and there are donors that also support the Jewish lobby, the Israel lobby in this country. They support it, and they clearly tell you that this one issue and that is it. So the Biden administration was willing to go along and work along with this guy who supported Trump and Trump-like politicians, and he was willing to work along with them. That tells you right there to your face, all this rhetoric that they put in front of you to make you think that they're so against the Republican Party. It is an act. It's theater. They work together behind the scenes because they have similar donors. Follow the money. Again, as you'll see here, not interested in anything else. But let other groups say this, right? Sabin has complete confidence in the Democratic Party leadership, Joe Biden, and said the party is still solidly pro-Israel, and there are only about a dozen members of Congress who are anti-Israel. So Sabin was scripting Biden's policy on Israel. They raised $4.5 million for Biden at a fundraiser weeks before the 2020 election. Everybody see what's going on? Sabin was true to his word. He's a one-issue guy. Yada, yada. The Sabins, him and his wife, supported Hillary Clinton in 2008 because she was a war horse for Israel. That's it. That's why these people don't feel like they need to have any policies or run on anything. That's it. The one issue and the one issue only. The next time somebody come to you and you say, well, I only care about this one issue, and somebody points their finger at you and they say that's being divisive, you can tell them to fuck off. Because you've had the Israel lobby in this country that has been prioritizing one issue for years. Again, shout out to Mondaweiss. It goes on to say here that they supported Hillary, as I said. Sabin reportedly deflated by Clinton's loss to Obama, whom he did not trust on Israel. For instance, Sabin was angered when Obama refused to echo Hillary Clinton's call to obliterate Iran if Iran attacked Israel. Once again, why was this man telling presidential candidates or presidents what they should do for foreign policy? Music executive. And Obama refused to meet with Sabin. As Sabin told Connie Bruck of The New Yorker, I had a list of questions in Chicago. Obama campaign headquarters could not organize that meeting. I was ready and willing to be helpful, but helpful is not to write a check for $2,300. It's to raise millions, for which I'm capable of doing, but Chicago wasn't able to deliver the meeting, so I couldn't get on board. Later, Obama came to appreciate Sabin's millions, and Obama pulled in his horns on Israel. Let me put this, you know what? Let me put this article, the link to this article in the chat so you guys can read this on your own time as well. So, all right, I put the link in there for that, for you guys. So you see what I'm saying? Everybody see what's happening here? Okay. Sabin gave $30 million to the Clinton Foundation when Hillary was Secretary of State. When she was Secretary of State, and gave her $16 million to her presidential run in 2016. That tells you the type of money that he has. But I just want to remind you, he is up at the top. All these artists that are working for Universal Music Group, they're not making what he's making. So like I said, once again, follow the money. This is how a lot of times musicians end up broke, because they're not making they sell all these albums, but mainly a lot of times they're making most of their money on tour. And also nowadays, because of Spotify and iTunes, do people even still buy CDs anymore? So let's just put it all together. Now that's him. Okay. That's him. These are all the people that DJ Khaled is connected to. So you guys got to understand, when you see people like Macklemore, for example, very vocal, wrote multiple songs criticizing Israel. Macklemore is independent. He's not a part of like Universal Music Group. From what I understand, he can speak out, more on these issues. And here's another one. Remember when Joe Biden decided to halt weapons for just a bit? By the way, that was an act as well. That was him to try to convince the protesters that he was considering. He wasn't. It was just an act. He never asked Netanyahu for a ceasefire. Biden and Kamala never asked for it. They sold out from the get-go. The day they walked in the White House, they sold their souls from the get-go. Now you connect all the damn dots, goddammit. Because this guy donated to Hillary Clinton to get her in, donated to Barack Obama. Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton recruited Kamala Harris for the Senate. You picking up what I'm talking? You picking it up? All these people are connected. That is the circle. They pick who they want. Now, he got upset. Hollywood mega donor Ham Sabin slams Biden's decision to halt weapon shipment to Israel. So this when he come in, and again, that wasn't a permanent thing. That was just a pause, and then he starts sending weapons right back over to him, right? So he came in and said, let's not forget there are more Jewish voters who care about Israel than Muslim voters who care about Hamas. Sabin wrote in an email to senior Biden aides, Steve Ricchetti and Anita Dunn. And by the way, Axios reported this. They reported it. The comments drew condemnation from Muslim American leaders who described Sabin's email as unhinged, hateful, petulant, anti-Muslim. But again, the Democratic Party also supports white supremacy. Even though they put on Kunta Kinte cloth after the death of George Floyd, that don't mean anything. That's just virtue signaling. They all still are agents for white supremacy. Now, again, I told you before, there's different types. There's overt. A lot of the racism that you see come from the Republican Party, that's overt racism. A lot of the racism you see come from the Democratic Party is covert racism. And some of that racism from the Democratic Party is also structural too. This is something that I dive into in the documentary that we're working on. You'll see that, how I apply it to Boston, about how a lot of the racism in Boston is structural racism. And we get into that. So the same people, so just think about this now. You literally have a vice president who was a woman of color, and they were allowing these racist donors talk about Palestinians the way that they did, and they went right along with it. They are all agents of white supremacy. This is something that Cornel West was correct about, and then you got to break it down. Now let's get back to DJ. DJ Khaled is a part of the Zionist influence on the music industry. This is from Press TV. It's all connected. UMG is the world's largest music company. The CEO, Lucian Grange, a supporter of the Friends of Israeli Offense Forces, heads a company with significant power. Everybody need to follow me. Caroline Grange funds the Zionist Federation in the Conservative Party. Billionaire Ham Sabin, who we just talked about, also has his own subsidiary through Universal and is known to be one of the largest donors to the Friends of the IOF in the organization's history. The infamous Lord Levi also worked as a financial consultant to Universal at the time as fundraising for former Israeli Prime Minister and close friend Ehud Barak. So when I say, like, that's how connected they are to Israel. So this part is interesting. However, the most important lobbyist to emerge out of Universal Music Group is probably David Renzer, former CEO of Universal Publishing. Renzer, along with other well-placed figures in the music and film industry, started an organization by the name Creative Community for Peace. The name sounds innocent enough, but examining the legal documents on its founding, we see that it was a part of one entity called Israel Emergency Alliance with a group called Stand With Us. Stand With Us works closely with the Israeli Foreign Ministry of Affairs and has in recent years obtained funding directly from the Israeli Prime Minister's office. So you have music executives that are that tight with Benjamin Netanyahu. All connected. It goes on to say here, check this out. You can see why Creative Community of Peace would use the word peace, right? See, they trying to trick you. They trying to trick you. As Stand With Us have said, always include the word peace in your answer. If the Israeli side says peace more times than the Palestinian side says peace, we will win the PR war. Everybody following? Now, despite their best efforts, the CCFP have not been able to live down their relationship with Stand With Us, the founder claiming there is no day-to-day relationship with it. CCFP take credit for lobbying stars like Alicia Keys, Macy Gray to perform in Israel following BDS campaigns asking to pull out in solidarity with Palestinians. So you guys hear all that? All of you that love Alicia Keys, you see how Alicia Keys can sell out for a lot of these people in the music industry are Zionist. See how she can do that? Then it goes on to say here, one of the more organizations ambassadors is Ziggy Marley's son of the late great political firebrand Bob Marley. This is another thing. We got to have a conversation with our reggae peeps. We got to have a conversation with the Ziggy Marley, Ziggy and Damien. And I know some of you love their music. I love their music too. But we got a conversation because I found out about this. I think it was right after October 7th that they are also Zionist. So Press TV, they put this out and like people need to see this. This is very important. Very important. And it also reminds me of that article that Whitney Webb wrote about the connection between Diddy, Epstein, Clive Davis, that whole connection. Again, what is the commonality here? Anytime you have a music executive that is advising the president of the United States on foreign policy, we have problems, folks. So for anyone who still tries to defend DJ Khaled and say, well, he doesn't have to say anything. No. Snap out of it. Snap out of it. DJ Khaled is basically bowing to his masters here over at UMG. Now, DJ Khaled has a lot of money. And if he wants to, he could walk away from all of that. He ain't really got to produce no more. He can walk away from all of that. But I don't care how much money you make. You don't ever let it get to the point where you won't even speak up for your own damn people. And you literally have another country trying to ethnically cleanse the people and your ass is silent. So kudos to Dave Chappelle because somebody else in the entertainment industry needed to call this out. Dwayne said DJ Coward. Yeah, it's crazy, you guys. Let's go to the comments here. Thank you. Kimmin said Haley Steinfeld is also a Zionist. See, I ought to tell you, a lot of them in the entertainment industry. Courtney said typo when you start. Oh, maybe you mean this one. I'm sorry. Thank you, Courtney. What's crazy is that when you start recognizing covert racism, it tends to stand out a lot louder than overt racism. Yep. And oftentimes it's structural. That's what I'm saying. David said, you are next, Trump. Susanna, thank you. Did you hear that Trump called Candace Owens R.E. Bridget Macron? I haven't seen any evidence of that. You guys know how I feel about like receipts. I haven't seen any evidence right now. To me, that's just hearsay. Thank you for the super sticker Total Eclipse. And thank you, Unemployed Scholar. Is it true Ham Sabin wrote the Super Mario rap also? I'm not sure. I'll have to check that. Interesting though. Thank you, Wandy. Miga, make Israel great again, not MAGA. Barefoot says dropping major heat lately. And it's been hot outside too. And thank you, Pine. A lot of people are saying there is a love triangle between Kanye, Bianca, and Sneeko. That is weird. Thank you, Talk Crypto. Thanks, Sabs, 100% fire. And thank you, Wandy. BBB too big to pass one bill at a time. Thank you, Kyle. I became a bop. Oh, I read that one already. Okay, thank you. Thank you guys so much. Now, I don't want to forget about that poll, so I hope people did answer the poll. Guys, answer the poll? Okay, so let's go to the poll and see what's happening here. Eric will be back. Eric and Corey will be back on Thursday. So I look forward to seeing them, you guys. I know you guys are missing them in the chat. I saw some of the comments. I missed them too. I missed them too. Okie dokie, honey buns. Let's check this poll. Aw, snap. Let's bring it up. I got the polls. I got the poll. I got the poll. I got the poll. Wish it would stop doing that. Okay. Alrighty. We have 2,170 votes. Do you agree with Trump's big, beautiful bill? 5% of you said yes. 74% said no. 17% said I need more information. And 4% said I'm still not sure. Thank you so much, you guys. Interesting. Yo, hey, props to the people who said they need more information, because it's like, I bet you guys were the kids in class that weren't afraid to raise your hand and ask a question. That's you guys, right? Yeah. Props to you, homies. Props. All right. And I think that is it. Let me grab the last comment here. I think someone else sent a super chat, I think. Thank you, Roger. Bayard Rustin, huge Zionist, MLK, Zio also. And thank you, Zero. Entertainment industry is owned by Zionists. This ain't new. And thank you, Michael. This is an enlightening encounter. Keep going. Thank you, Michael. Thank you. All right. I know I hadn't done a deep dive for a while. So I was like, when I saw the comment from Dave Chappelle, I was like, nah, we got to follow the tracks of who DJ Khaled is connected to so people can just see it for themselves, Crazy times. Skylar said MLK was not a Zionist. I know there's like disagreement among people about that. Hey, Luna, what's up? Says, I was not afraid to get in trouble for asking the wrong questions. And you know what? You go ahead, Luna. You do the damn thing. You do it. And Bryce said, love the homie the clown pick. I like that too. Oh, man. That is it for me tonight, ladies and gentlemen. I will be back live Thursday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern time. And Eric and Corey will be back. So until then, guys, have a good night. Keep up the fight. Woo!